Chapter 1161. Although the Hutu was stopping the big forces from entering, it did not stop the small forces, individuals, or itinerant cultivators. This immediately made many people, especially those who were not doing very well, who were also the largest group of people in the Desolation continent, have some thoughts. The Hutu did not allow the big forces to enter because she did not want anyone to fight for territory with the Wu people. Although the big forces could not enter, the small forces and individuals should not have any problems. This was because they did not pose any threat to the Wu people at all. For a moment, countless people were ready to make a move because of this. The reason for this was actually because they were forced to. Since the ancient times, the world had been constantly evolving, but it was also constantly being destroyed. Two catastrophes. One destroyed the West, and the other was even worse. The pillars fell, and the sky was broken. If the Wu people had not joined forces with the Blood Sea this time, even the North Continent would have been destroyed. Chaos Spirit Chi had been transformed into Khanate Spirit Chi. Now, Khanate Spirit Chi was also transforming into Acquired Spirit Chi. Wanting to cultivate to a higher realm was getting more and more difficult. The four elements of cultivation were wealth, companionship, method, and place. To put it bluntly, it was resources. However, since the ancient times, the good things had basically all been taken. The four C's belonged to the dragon race. Although the dragon race was often bullied, no one could ignore their strength. The Desolation continent belonged to the Buddhist and Taoist sections. Of course, the Wu people might also be included now. The underworld belonged to the Wu people, and the heavenly court belonged to Hao Yin. Therefore, it was really not easy for people without a strong background to find a good place to cultivate. This time, the North Continent was a great opportunity for him. In the past, because the North Continent had been polluted by the Black Turtle's resentment, it was not suitable for cultivation. However, there were few people there. Although there were many spiritual mountains and blessed lands, not many people occupied them. Now, things had returned to normal. Although the Wu people had taken over most of the territory, that was only the division of the big forces. They occupied famous mountains and rivers that were at least of the best quality. For ordinary itinerant cultivators, a mid-level cave abode was already good enough. After all, no matter how big the appetite of the Wu people was, they could not be so domineering as to monopolize everything. They ate the meat, and the others drank a mouthful of the soup. To the disciples of the sages, they naturally wouldn't cut them, but to the ordinary people, it was already a pleasant surprise. After all, the other places had their own opportunities. Only the North Continent had extra positions and opportunities because of what had happened in the past. Quick hands get, slow hands get nothing. For a time, a wave of northern drifters began to take shape. Putting aside the living beings who had drifted north because of the North Continent, this matter had only just subsided, and another wave had arisen. The matter in the North Continent had just ended. Now another huge problem had arisen in the human race. In fact, this was the famous ancient mythological Jingwei filling the sea that was equally famous as Kwa Fu chasing the sun and Ho Yi shooting the sun. Unfortunately, in the end, the dragon race was just like Ro, directly admitting defeat. Everyone could not help but sigh and ridicule. Where's your backbone? Where is your courage? However, they were just shooting their mouths. They were just here to watch a good show and didn't mind if things got out of hand. If they were placed in the same position, they probably wouldn't even dare to let out a fart. They might even be inferior to the dragon race. The flowers in the forest withered in the red of spring. Two hurried, helpless cold rain in the morning and wind in the evening, rouge tears, drunk together. When will they be together again? Naturally, people grew up with hatred, and water flowed east. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed quietly while the cultivators were meditating. Shino was the same as Fushi. It was time for him to abdicate and become the human emperor. As for his successor, Shino had already chosen one. It was Xianyuan. In the beginning, when Guang Chengzi brought Xianyuan to look for Shino and asked him to pass the position to Xianyuan, to be honest, Shino refused and was unhappy. After all, Guang Chengzi's attitude was not good. other than a few disciples of Chan school. The other disciples of the heavenly Lord of primordial beginning did not inherit. However, they were overbearing and arrogant. Because Xianyuan was destined to be the human emperor, they felt that Shino should naturally pass the position to him. His tone was arrogant. It was only because Shino had good self-restraint and gave face to the great Taoist Master Xiandu otherwise, he might have directly chased him out. In addition, as the only pure human among the three emperors of the human race, Shino naturally cared more about the prosperity of the human race. After all, he could even let go of the revenge of killing his daughter for the sake of the human race. Therefore, before he saw Xuanyuan's true ability, even if he became the disciple of Chan school, even if he was the so-called destined human emperor, Shino still hesitated. However, for the sake of the great Taoist Master Xiandu, just like how Fuxi had given him a chance back then, he also gave Xianyuan a chance. He took him as a candidate and let him manage the tribe. He would observe the results. If it was really good, it was not impossible for him to do so because they were from the same sect. If it was not good, it would be useless even if he said it out loud. In the end, in his heart, the human race was the most important. Fortunately, Xianyuan did not disappoint. Although his actions were inevitably filled with killing, he still managed the tribe in an orderly manner and became more prosperous. Therefore, in the end, Shino decided to pass the position of the human emperor to Xianyuan. Although there were many other suitable candidates in the human race besides Xianyuan, such as Chiyu of the Juli tribe, at the end of the day, people were selfish and biased. Even sages were no exception. On the premise that it did not affect the overall situation, it was actually understandable that Shino would pass the position to Xianyuan. It was a pity that the current Chi-Yu was not the Chi-Yu in the original trajectory, and the current shamans were not the shamans in the original trajectory either. Shino's decision immediately dragged the human race into the vortex of war. In fact, this could not be blamed on Shino, because all of this was already destined. When Fuxi reincarnated, Laozi promised the Wu people a ticket to enter the human emperor. This was already foreshadowing. Shino proving the way was the same as when Fuxi proved the way. In fact, the scene was even grander than when Fuxi proved the way. In addition to the three races of the human race, Fuxi, the ancient sages of the human race, Sage Sanqing, Virgin Yuhua, Hutu of the Wu people, the mighty beings who were on good terms with the human race, Xinyuanzi, Anyun, and so on, even Fang Qingshan came. The reason for this was not because Shino's background was stronger than Fuxi's, but because today's matter was not trivial. Seeing all the big shots appear, Shino did not feel honored. On the contrary, he felt an unprecedented pressure. He already had a feeling that today's proving the way would not be peaceful. Unfortunately, even if he knew, there was nothing he could do. Although he was the human emperor, he had not proved the way yet. He was just a mortal. Even if he proved the way, so what? Although the human emperor's status was comparable to that of a sage, it was only comparable. It was only status, not strength. In the end, the desolation was a place where strength spoke. Were the three ancestors of the human race willing to let others control the human race and use the human race as a chess piece? But what could they do even if they were unwilling? In the end, they were powerless. Chapter 1162. Strength. At the end of the day, the desolation world was still a place where the strong preyed on the weak and the fittest survived. With strength, a bigger fist was the hard truth. They might not be able to do whatever they wanted, but at least they wouldn't be bullied by others. Without strength, they were just ants, and as ants, they had to have the mentality to deal with all difficulties and obstacles. No matter what Shino thought, the abdication ceremony went on in an orderly manner. Just like when Fuxi proved his Tao, Shino obviously had to announce what contributions he had made to the human race over the years. He endured hardships to open up the mountains and forests, and tempered himself in the wind and rain. Ever since Shinong of the Lai Mountain clan succeeded the throne, he didn't dare to slack off. He worked day and night for the human race until his death. He made outstanding contributions to the development of the human race and had great merit for the human race. He traveled more than half of the desolation world and tasted countless herbs, so that the human race was no longer helpless against diseases. He wrote a volume of Shinong's herbal scripture to be passed down to future generations. Food is the most important thing for the people. Shinong planted the 5 grains, greatly alleviating the problem of food and clothing for the human race and laying the foundation of agriculture. He promoted the development of agricultural production and created the conditions for the human race to transform from a primitive nomadic life to an agricultural civilization. He set up the city hall and the first market. With the sun as the market, he started the commercial era of barter. After Fuxi, he cut trees into zither and knotted silk into strings, enriching the human race's spare time. He made pottery and improved people's lives. He had a profound impact on the human diet, hygiene, and the development of medicine. He set up the calendar, set up the stars, divided the day and night, and set the sun and moon. The month is the 30th day, and the November is the winter solstice. The great Taoist master Xian Du recited all the contributions that Shino had made to the human race in the past 100 years. Although all the humans knew that Shino was good and that he had made outstanding contributions, they still could not help but feel a surge of respect in their hearts when they heard it. Today, Shenong has achieved great success and has proven his Tao as an earthly sovereign. He will abdicate his position to a better man. At this point, the entire human race was just like how they couldn't bear to part with Fuxi in the past. They all burst into tears. There was both reluctance and nostalgia. At the same time, a huge wave of power of will surged over like a tidal wave. If it was an ordinary person, they might even be able to use this wave of power of will to ascend to godhood. However, Shino's abdication was already a foregone conclusion. Although everyone was reluctant, it was futile to ask him to stay. By the order of the Ren School's sect master, the Lord of Tao and Virtue, the great pure saint, Lai Shan has been conferred the title of earthly sovereign. He will follow the heavenly sovereign, Fuxi, to reside at the Phoenix Mountain to suppress the fortune of the human race. He will not come out until the great calamity of the human race. As the great Taoist master Xian Du finished speaking, Fuxi threw the Kongtong seal in his hand. Roar! With a dragon's cry, 9 nine-clawed golden dragons flew out from the Kongtong seal. These were the Kongtong seal's source artifact spirits. They circled around Shino and carried an Earth Sovereign Tao fruit into the heavenly gate above Shino's head. Although the emperors of the later generations were known as the Emperor and the Son of Heaven, that was only a weakened version. The current human emperor was not weaker than the celestial emperor. He was the true supreme being. Even the saints were only on equal footing with him. Speaking of which, the human emperor was actually the saint of human Tao. He was the same as the Hongjun Tian Tao, saint like Sanqing, and the Tao, saint like Hutu. At the same time, in the sky, endless chi of merit gathered. Good fellow, look at your merit. In the future, you seem to be above Fuxi. Compared to Fuxi, Shino's merit was indeed greater. Otherwise, the future generations would not only talk about Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang. Of course, the most important thing was that he was still one of them. Fuxi was the reincarnation of the demon race. Although he swore that there were only Fuxi of the human race and no Fuxi of the demon race, he still could not compare to the ones nurtured by the human race. But after all, they were still not as good as the ones cultivated by the humans themselves. Hence, the merit from the human Tao was slightly more than the Fuxi. As soon as the karmic luck landed on Shino's body, Shino's old body immediately changed. Like a withered tree in the spring, an old tree blooming, he instantly felt that his body was filled with endless power. His primordial spirit floated like an immortal, focused and soft, like a baby. At the same time, Shino's cultivation level began to surge like a raging river. From the beginning, Xian Immortal, Golden Immortal, Primordial Unity, Golden Immortal, Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, and Sage to Be, he rose up in a single breath without any delay. This did not cause the crowd to be surprised, because they knew that Sage to Be was far from Shino's limit. Moreover, This was normal. If he had so many merits, they would be shocked if he did not have such a performance. However, Fuxi used to be at the peak of sage to be, while Shino was a mortal. Although he became the disciple of the great master Xiandu, he learned most about medicinal pills and how to manage the human race. His cultivation level was secondary, which was why he looked so frail previously. Therefore, Shino had more chi of merit than Fuxi. However, in the end, he only rose to the same realm as Fuxi, omnipotent man, and sage to be. At the same time, a portion of merit that was equivalent to about 2 levels of Shino's merit landed on the head of the great master Xian. The great master Xiandu in this life was stronger than in the original trajectory. Under his father's unremitting training and his own hard work, he had long reached the peak of zenith heaven. Now that the merit had landed on him, his mind was clear. The great Tao that was usually blurry was now clear in front of him. The great master Xiandu revealed an auspicious cloud. Above the auspicious cloud, waves of air rolled, and 3 flowers bloomed. A ray of light flashed, and a person jumped down from the auspicious cloud. He bowed to the great master Xiandu and said, "Congratulations, Taoist, for becoming a sage to be. Your great Tao is within reach." The great master Xiandu replied emotionlessly, "Taoist and I are one. Of course we should be happy." The Taoist smiled, and then turned into a flowing light, flew into the great master Xiandu's body, and disappeared. Seeing that the great master Xiandu had successfully beheaded the corpse, although lousy was Taishang Wangqing, he could not help but smile at this moment. After all, among the second generation of the Xian men, there was no one at the peak of zenith heaven golden immortal, let alone a sage to be. He had surpassed his peers and began to catch up with the masters of the older generation. How could Laozi not be happy that there was a successor that could make him proud? Although the primordial lord of heaven, Tongtian, and the others were happy for Laozi, they were also a little jealous. Fortunately, they had always regarded Laozi as a role model. The great master Xiandu was not bad, and they had a good relationship with Sanqing, so they did not have any negative feelings. However, treasures of plenty and Guangchengzi were miserable. With the great master Xiandu, the primordial lord of heaven and Tongtian pinned their hopes on them, hoping that they would become the next great master Xiandu, of course. The reason why they had such a wish and expectation was that Guangchengzi would become the teacher of Xian Yuan, and treasures of plenty would become the teacher of 2 emperors. Shino returns, Xian Yuan succeeds. After Shino became a human emperor, the great master Xiandu immediately announced that Xian Yuan would inherit the throne. Chapter 1163. Wait, there is nothing wrong with Shinnong's return, but as soon as Xian Yuan said that, he was interrupted. Shua. At this moment, everyone's gaze followed the voice and landed on the Shura sovereign. Obviously, he was the one who spoke just now. He's here. At this moment, everyone's heart was in an uproar. Why were there so many more people attending Shino's abdication ceremony than Fuxi's? Were they bored out of their minds, or were they trying to give Shino face? No, none of them were. They were all onlookers who came to watch the show. After all, the news that Wu people were going to compete for the position of the human emperor had spread throughout the Desolation Society. What advice does the Azura Mosquito Taoist have for me? Seeing this scene, Laozi and the others naturally looked sullen, especially the honored lord of the beginning, who almost slapped him. It was only because of the presence of Fang Qingshan and Hutu that he could not lose his temper. However, his face was also sullen. After all, the Shura sovereign's actions were typical of someone who came to cause trouble. The human race's human emperor is of great importance. Back then, Fuxi was elected by the entire human race. May I ask, Xuandu Taoist, what qualifications do you have to confer the title of human emperor? And what virtues does Xian Yuan have to inherit the position of human emperor? The Shura sovereign asked bluntly. The eldest brother Xuandu is the only direct disciple of my eldest uncle, and my eldest uncle is the hierarch of the tribe of Ren. His words are the law of heaven, so he can naturally be conferred the title of human emperor. As for Xian Yuan, He is destined to be the human emperor. He is born with great luck, and he is a disciple of the sage of the Chan denomination. What do you think of him? Before the great Taoist master Xian Du could speak, Guang Qingzi could not hold it in and answered first. First of all, Shura's sovereign had ruined his place, so he naturally could not show weakness. Second of all, although Guang Qingzi was quite conceited, he was much weaker than Shura's sovereign, so he could not help but feel jealous. Usually, he wouldn't be able to find an opportunity to provoke Zhang Xian, and he didn't dare to do so either. However, now that he had a valid reason to do so, and his teacher was present, he naturally had to put on a show. The sect master of Rin School can confer the title of the human emperor? What about the holy mother of the human race? What about the human emperor's most valuable treasure, the Wutong seal? If everyone supports one, wouldn't everyone be a human sovereign? The Shura sovereign sneered. As for the destined human emperor, how come I didn't know? Was it Hongjun Tiandao who asked, or was it someone else? As for those born with great luck, how many of them are there? Not to mention becoming a disciple of the Enlightenment sect. Becoming a disciple of a sage is simply a joke. Do you think there are very few disciples of a sage in the entire Desolation sect? According to this principle, doesn't it mean that everyone can become a human sovereign? When Guang Chengzi heard this, he was instantly infuriated. However, compared to the lotus flower conveyance of the Buddhist sect, it was obvious that his eloquence was lacking. He was exasperated after being refuted. Fortunately, he had the help of the great Taoist master Xian Du. Rin School is established by humans. The matters of the human race can naturally be decided with a word. As for the goddess and the Kongtong seal that the Taoist mentioned, I don't know about the Kongtong seal, but the goddess also supports Xian Yuan. There are many disciples of the saints, but Xian Yuan is the only one who meets all the requirements. Is that so? If that's the case, why do I feel that Qi Yu is more suitable than Xian Yuan? The Shura emperor revealed a faint smile. Without waiting for the great Taoist, Master Xian Du, Guang Chengzi, and the others to refute, the Shura emperor began to speak. Let's not talk about the matter of Rin School for now. Qi Yu purified the North Continent and is the son of destiny of the North. He is truly born with great luck and great merit. Moreover, Qi Yu is my disciple and is from the same sect as the heavenly emperor, Fuxi. He is also a disciple of the primordial chaos sect and is not weaker than the disciples of the saints. These are all designated according to your symbols. Tell me, compared to Qi Yu, how can Xian Yuan compare to him? Upon hearing that, everyone could not help but be speechless. After all, there was nothing wrong with the Shura emperor's words. If his name is not right, his words will not be right. If his words are not right, he will not succeed. After a long while, the great Taoist Master Xian Du said in a low voice, although Qi Yu is as good as Xian Yuan, there's one thing he can't compare to. Oh, what is it? The Shura emperor asked nonchalantly. The human race naturally has to decide their own matters. Great Taoist Master Xian Du said, although Hongjun Tiandao did not say anything, the human Tao has already indicated that Xian Yuan is the successor appointed by the Earth Emperor, Shinnon. Moreover, he has obtained the approval of the goddess of the human race and the sect master of Rin School. Upon hearing that, Laozi, primordial being, and the others could not help but heave a sigh of relief and smile. That's right, the human race should decide their own matters. Although it was just superficial, it could only deceive ordinary humans. From the beginning until now, the three ancestors of the human race and the other upper echelons of the human race had a straight face and did not say anything at all. However, it was still a fig leaf and had a good reason to attack. Hee. Unexpectedly, the Shura emperor sneered. In that case, how do you know if Qi Yu has also received the human Tao signal? That's impossible. Guang Qingzi rejected it decisively. Is that so? The Shura emperor revealed a thought-provoking smile. Seeing that, the hearts of great Taoist Master Xian Du and the others skipped a beat. What happened next confirmed the bad premonition in their hearts. Qi Yu, show it. The Shura emperor called out. Qi Yu did not hesitate. He strode forward and looked around. Then, he patted his forehead, and an auspicious cloud rose. In the auspicious cloud, there were two treasures, a cauldron and a whip. Upon seeing those two treasures, the expressions of Laozi and the others changed. That was because the cauldron was not any other cauldron, but the cosmic cauldron. Back then, it was thanks to this treasure that humans were created. If it was not Feng Qingshan's treasure, it would have long become the treasure of the human race. If the cosmic cauldron was not the treasure of the human race, then the whip was. That was because it was called the man-making whip. At the same time, the Kongtong seal in Fushi's hand flew out. It met with the cosmic cauldron and the man-making whip. At the same time, it erupted with infinite brilliance, making Qi Yu look extremely majestic. Upon seeing that, everyone fell silent. Xian Yuan was appointed by Shen Nong, while Qi Yu was acknowledged by Fushi. Xian Yuan had the support of Laozi and Yuhua, while Qi Yu had the support of the man-making whip, the cosmic cauldron, and the Kongtong seal. Both of them were evenly matched. Great Taoist Master Xian Du and Guang Chengzi were at their wits' end. They could not win against him in reasoning. After all, he was doing things according to the rules that they had set. Denying him was equivalent to denying oneself. If the master had something to do, the disciple would have to do it. If the disciple had something that he could not solve, the master would naturally have to do it. Since everyone is arguing endlessly, why don't we do it this way? Let's rely on our own means. How about that? When great Taoist Master Xian Du and Guang Chengzi looked at their master, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning had always followed Laozi's lead. Although Xian Yuan was Guang Chengzi's disciple this time, he did not speak rashly. He also looked at Laozi and let him make the decision. Chapter 1164. If time could be turned back, or if he had such great magical powers, he would definitely not have agreed to Hoodoo and Wu people's ticket to the human sovereign realm. However, if that was really possible, he had no choice but to agree, because he had not even settled Fushi, let alone other human sovereigns. If he had such great magical powers, why would he be afraid of Hoodoo and Feng Qingshan? Therefore, everything was just an unrealistic assumption. However, to be honest, he was regretting it now. When he agreed to give Wu people a ticket, he actually felt that victory was in his grasp. So what if he had Hotu's support? This world could not withstand the attacks of saints. Moreover, Hotu's cultivation level was much higher than theirs. Hongjun would not let them suffer. As long as Hotu did not interfere, how could a broken Wu people not be able to compete with a thriving and rich Xianmen? However, he did not expect Wu people to pull Blood Sea over. Shura Emperor had once again become the teacher of a human sovereign. Hongjun could suppress Hotu and Dao, but not Blood Sea, Feng Qingshan, and Mosquito Daoren. Most importantly, because of purifying the North Continent, Qiu's fate of merit actually surpassed Xuanyuan's. In addition, in order to help Qiu, he did not expect Feng Qingshan to use the cauldron of heaven and earth, the man-making whip, and the Kongtong seal. One was a superior grade Khanate treasure, one was an acquired treasure of merit, and one was a treasure of fate of the human sovereign. In particular, they were treasures that could suppress the fate of the human race. In terms of importance and credibility, they were no weaker than saints. Furthermore, the most important thing was that he had actually repaired the 12 divine banners. With this treasure, he could set up the great Pangu divine fiend formation and summon the real body of Pangu. Although it might not be as powerful as the combined attack of the 12 ancestors of sorcery, if the sages did not appear, even the combined attack of the 12-peaked sage-to-be might not be able to break the formation. Even if they used the fairy-slaying sword formation, they were only evenly matched. The chances of winning were 50-50. As such, they were in an awkward situation. The offensive and defensive situations were different. Moreover, they were at a disadvantage. He had miscalculated. Laozi didn't have any other good ideas at the moment, so he could only brace himself and say, "The cataclysm has just ended. In order to prevent the battle from escalating, I don't think sages and primordial chaos immortals should take action." This point had to be made clear first. Otherwise, if Hutu, Feng Qingshan, or mosquito darn attacked, they would not be a match for them even if they joined hands. No problem. In this regard, Hutu and Fong Qingshan couldn't help but agree. Firstly, they knew that if they took action, Hongjun Tiandao would definitely not let them go. Moreover, they had prepared so much in advance. They were very confident in Qiyu, especially with the banners of killing in their hands. If they were still suppressed by Xian Yuan, then they could only accept their fate. What's in one's life, what's not in one's life, there's no need to force it. The matter was settled. The throne of the human sovereign would be put aside for the time being. Finally, it would depend on Xian Yuan and Qiyu's respective means. Therefore, Xian Yuan started to develop with the Yoxiong tribe as the foundation, while Qiyu used the Zhuli tribe as his backing and waited for an opportunity. To become the human emperor, though they had to defeat their opponents, it still depended on their contributions to the humankind. Therefore, both Xian Yuan and Qiyu focused on strengthening their tribes. In order to strengthen their forces and increase their chances of winning against their opponents, Xian Yuan and Qiyu used all their means. Because there was a battle, and it was a battle between the humankind. Even if they had external help, they still had to be strong. Therefore, while developing the tribe, Xian Yuan started to use the resources of the Xian men to cultivate the strength of the tribe. In a large-scale battle, if there was no absolute suppression of strength, the army would definitely have the advantage. In order to cultivate an invincible army, Xian Yuan tried his best. He used the method of making Taoist soldiers in the Xian men to cultivate the army. It was the same for Qiyu. In terms of the source of soldiers, he was better than Xian Yuan. After all, the Zhili tribe alliance was made up of shamans. The blood of the Wu people flowed in their bodies. They were born warriors. Qiyu passed down the simple cultivation method of the Wu people. With the Wu people as their backing, the shaman soldiers that they cultivated were even better than Xuanyuan's Taoist soldiers. On one side were the Taoist soldiers, and on the other side were the shaman soldiers. On the other side were various military battle formations. Qiyu also simplified the Great Divine Fiend formation and passed down the 9-9 Mysterious Fiend formation. This formation was used in the original trajectory when Qiyu and Xian Yuan were fighting for supremacy. This time, because they had the Great Divine Fiend formation, they naturally did not need to use it as a trump card. Just as Qiyu and Xian Yuan were preparing their troops, a force rose among the humankind. It did not belong to the Ren school, nor did it belong to the Wu people. It was a force left behind by the previous generation. Where there were people, there would be the pugilistic world. Where there were people, there would be benefits. This was true. However, it could be said that the fight between Qiyu and Xian Yuan for the position of the human emperor had unexpectedly stimulated a person's ambition. This person was none other than Shinnong's son. Everyone knew that Shinnong had a daughter. After all, the story of Jing Wei filling the sea was widely spread. However, few people knew that Shinnong had a son. Why? Naturally, it was because he did not have any outstanding contributions. However, this time, he was in the limelight. This was because he planned to compete with Qiyu and Xian Yuan for the position of the human emperor. Originally, he did not think about this. After all, it was not like the dynasty of the future. The family ruled the world, and the son would succeed the father. In ancient times, there were only 2 human emperors, and they still used the abdication system, which meant that the most capable person would take over. Unfortunately, the scene at Shinnong's abdication ceremony made Shinnong's son ambitious. Kings, marquises, and generals all had guts. Since Qiyu could participate in the competition for the position of the human emperor, as the son of the human emperor, he naturally had the same qualification. Coupled with the instigation of a group of ministers of Shinnong's generation who did not want to lose their power, the human tribe now had a tripartite balance. However, compared to Xian Yuan, who had the Xian men behind him, and Qiyu, who had the Wu people behind him, Shinnong's son was much inferior. Not to mention others. Although he was the son of the human emperor, he was much worse than Xian Yuan and Qiyu. Not to mention him, even his father was at most similar to them. Fortunately, although he was not as good as Xian Yuan and Qiyu, he was not without people around him. After all, there was no lack of ambitious people everywhere, especially those who did not want to abdicate with Shinnong. It was a pity that a new emperor would have his own ministers. Even if they did not want to abdicate, unless they were really capable, Xian Yuan would not use them. If they were really capable, they would not be obsessed with the position at all. In addition, there were some people who wished for the world to be in chaos, or in other words, to play chess. They casually planted a seed, not caring whether it would bloom or bear fruit. If it succeeded, it would be a pleasant surprise. If it failed, it was just a joke to relieve boredom. Chapter 1165. The human clan's light from Providence was even more prosperous than that of the dragon, phoenix, sorcerer, and demon lords of the last two cultivation catastrophes. The six sages, especially Laozi and Yuhua, had made rapid progress in their cultivation recently. Although they had yet to break through to the mid-stage primordial chaos realm, they were not far from it. Everyone could see this. Although the six sages were obstructed by the human clan, there were still many people who wanted a piece of the pie. Even Zhuan and Jin couldn't wait to join in the fun. Unfortunately, they were different from Goddess Enviwa. Although Goddess Enviwa was a loner, and her cultivation might not be higher than theirs, there was one thing that they could not compare to. After all, the human race was created by Goddess Enviwa. Even though she had agreed to the demon race's slaughter of the human race and hurt the hearts of the human race. As the saying goes, a child should not speak of his father's mistakes. No one could deprive her of the human race's destiny. As for Jin and Zhuan, they were vaguely excluded by Sanqing. Therefore, they could only think of another way and take an unconventional approach. After all, the Xianmen and even the declining sorcerer and demon lords were developing like wildfire, while the West and the Buddhist sects were having difficulty developing, let alone prospering. The two of them were anxious. Aside from them, who had placed their pieces on Shinnong's son, there were also other people from the heavenly demon heavens Luoho. The Shura sovereign's pure white lotus had caused them to suffer a great loss. Although they couldn't fight back openly, they could still cause some trouble for them. There were also some ambitious people, regardless of whether they were from the human clan or the demon clan. There were also some itinerant cultivators who were not accepted by Qiyu and Xian Yuan, but wanted to use the human clan's light from Providence to break through their cultivation. Shinnong was so angry at his stupid son that he almost did not take action himself. However, he was now the human emperor and a retired one at that. He could not meddle in the affairs of the human clan at will, even if it was his son. However, Shinnong was wrong about one thing. His son might have been aware of these disloyal people. However, if he wanted to compete with Xian Yuan and Qiyu, he obviously could not rely on himself. Black cats and white cats were good cats that could help him and Qiyu fight as equals. This was why Shinnong's son turned a blind eye and didn't reject anyone. As for Xian Yuan and Qiyu, they didn't pay any attention to this person who came out of nowhere. One of them had the Xianmen gate behind him, and the other had the Wu people behind him. Their abilities were not weak either. Looking at Shinnong's son, in addition to his identity as the son of the human emperor, his subordinates were completely in a state of disunity. There was a wave of ambitious old ministers left by his father, and some people of unknown origin and purpose who wanted to fish in troubled waters. They did not pose any threat to them at all. It could be said that not only were there ups and downs in the desolation, but there were also turbulent winds and clouds in the chaos. Last time, after the poison god Marquis and the others came up with a plan, they naturally acted according to the plan. They split into 5 groups and were led by 5 mid-stage primordial chaos experts, namely Poison Marquis, Madame Baiwa, the teacher, the woodcutter, and the gardener. They avoided the desolation world, but swept through the 5 groups in the chaos: east, west, south, and central. Except for those places that were too dangerous for them to take, they did not let go of other resources. Zhuan and Fang Qingshan's 1 meter higher sky could only admit defeat in front of them. In fact, this was normal. After all, the Lifeless Demon Palace was a notorious Void Bandits team that was ranked in the top 10. Robbing and plundering were the norm. Everywhere they passed was like devils entering a village or locusts passing through. The chaos was vast and boundless. Even a primordial chaos expert would need a long time to travel through it. With a bigger territory, there would naturally be more resources. Moreover, anything that could be preserved in the chaos was basically helpful to the primordial chaos realm. If Pangu had not proved his Tao, split the heavens and the earth, and fought with the 3,000 demon gods, the resources would have been more abundant. Given the new state of the Pangu chaos world, there would have been more and more abundant resources. In that case, why did the Desolation Saint still set his sights on the Desolation world? What about the undeveloped chaos world? In addition to most of the resources being destroyed, the most important thing was that the success and failure of the saint were also due to the saint. The difficulty of becoming a saint was naturally lower than that of becoming a primordial chaos. One could tell by looking at the number of saints in primordial chaos world and the desolation world. Moreover, the safety factor of a saint was higher than that of a primordial chaos world. As long as Hongjun Tiandao, or the world, was not destroyed, a saint would not die. During the first witch and demon war, Niwa and Hongjun had fallen one after another. However, as long as the desolation world was not destroyed, they quickly recovered. During the second witch and demon war, the heavenly pillar had collapsed. In order to support the sky, Tong Tian had chopped off the limbs of the black tortoise. As a primordial chaos expert, the black tortoise had died. Comparing the two cases, the superiority was obvious. Moreover, in the early stage, which was when the cultivation level reached Hongjun Tiandao and the height of the world origin willpower, the cultivation speed of a saint was much faster than that of a primordial chaos world. Look at Hongjun. How much time did it take to become a peak primordial chaos world from becoming a saint? Although he had gone one step further and become one with the Tao. However, there were advantages and disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage was freedom. Why did so many people want to become immortals and not deities? Even if Sanqing was in charge of the mystic sect's heavenly court, he was not willing to let his disciples, or even outer sect disciples, go to the heavenly court to listen to Hao Yan's deployment. In addition to not wanting his disciples to depend on others, the heavenly court had deep karma. More importantly, becoming a deity meant not having freedom. It was the same for becoming a deity and a saint. Fortunately, compared to becoming a deity, becoming a saint had fewer restrictions. After all, everyone below a saint was a non-entity. In this world, strength was still respected. As long as one did not stray too far from the desolation world, one would be fine. Why was becoming a saint easier than becoming a primordial chaos world? This was because a saint could suppress Hongjun Tiandao. Just like the four sacred beasts, they guarded heaven and earth. If a saint left the desolation world, wouldn't it be all for naught? In addition, it was dangerous. There was basically no danger for a saint in the desolation world. However, it was different in the chaos. Apart from Pangu, even top chaotic demon gods like fate, karma, time, and reincarnation did not dare to say that they could run amok in the chaos. Didn't they see that Yang Mei had always been in the desolation world instead of staying in the chaos? Although it was because he was injured, it also indirectly showed how dangerous chaos was. He could not go far away, which was even more dangerous. In addition, Sanqing and the others had not encountered a bottleneck and had enough resources for them to quickly improve their cultivation. Although they could not catch up with Fang Qingshan, it was still not bad. Under such circumstances, a saint naturally did not need to prepare for a rainy day. However, it was different for the divine Poison Marquis and the others. Who were they? They were bandits who could run amok in the boundless void. They could even travel freely in the boundless void, not to mention the chaos. As for how to develop and deal with the chaos and void, they already had a set of effective methods. Chapter 1166. Danger was nothing to the void bandits. After all, robbing and plundering was like dancing with swords and sabers. There was no tomorrow. Therefore, as long as it could bring them considerable benefits, even if there was only a 50% chance of success, it would be enough for them to take the risk out of desperation. If there was something that moved them, even if there was only a 30% chance of success, they would still take the risk even if they knew it was impossible. If they could see the prospect of soaring into the sky, even if there was only a 10% chance of success, they would still dare to take the risk of dying and never being able to reincarnate, like a moth flying into a flame. Furthermore, they had experience in developing and exploring. They were also driven by benefits and were used to taking risks. Therefore, while the Desolation Saints were still scheming for the light from Providence shining on the human race, the Poison Marquis and the others had already set off a storm in the chaos. In fact, the Poison Marquis and the others were lucky. If it had not been for the heaven-opening tribulation, any top-notch demon god, or even a high-ranked demon god, would have been enough to make them suffer. Now, there are almost no low-ranked demon gods, let alone high-rank ones. As long as they were careful when exploring and plundering, they would not touch those forbidden danger zones and avoid natural disasters like the Chaos Windstorm. Their safety was still guaranteed. Compared to the Chaos worlds that had existed since ancient times, the Pangu Chaos world seemed very young. In fact, some of the famous experts of the Great Desolate World might be older than him. Although being new meant having a shallow foundation, it also meant that it had not been developed and had abundant resources. It had experienced the heaven-opening tribulation of Pangu, which had engulfed the entire Chaos world. All kinds of resources had been destroyed. However, the remaining items were precious to primordial Chaos realm experts, especially those who had yet to reach the late-stage primordial Chaos realm. This was also the reason why the Poison Marquis and the others had secretly withheld the information even though they knew that it was a Chaos world. There was not much danger, but there were many benefits. Every time they harvested, the Poison Marquis and the others would first divide the spoils. After that, they would enter seclusion and use the resources to improve their cultivation level. For void thieves, they were people who lived on the edge of death. After today, they didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Therefore, there was no such thing as accumulating wealth. Moreover, a bird in the hand is better than 1,000 birds in the bush. Naturally, once the resources were in his hands, he would have to quickly convert them into power and cultivation. Storing them up was the most undesirable and stupid method. Therefore, as long as they had something good in their hands, anything that could help them increase their cultivation base, these void thieves would use it immediately. Moreover, there was another benefit to this, and that was that they could use the resources immediately after obtaining them. They didn't have to worry about having good things on them. After all, a man's wealth would become his own ruin, and they wouldn't attract covetous eyes. After all, putting aside the dangers of being a void thief, they also had to be on guard against each other at all times. As one's cultivation increased, one's ability to obtain and earn resources would naturally increase as well. In this way, a virtuous cycle was formed. By obtaining resources, one's cultivation base would increase. By increasing one's cultivation base, one would be able to obtain better and more resources faster, which in turn would push one's cultivation base to increase. This was also the reason why the strong would become stronger. As such, the divine Poison Marquis and the others harvested the resources in the chaos, such as various chaotic beasts' flesh, cores, nomological laws, various specialties from Pangu's chaotic world, natural treasures, and even various feng shui treasured lands and strange and dangerous lands. All the while, they used them to increase their own cultivation bases as much as possible. Hongjun didn't notice this at first, or rather, he saw it, but he didn't think much of it. After all, with his knowledge of the world of desolation as a reference, it would take a long time to increase one's cultivation base after reaching the origin realm, even if one had resources. Sanxing and the others had ascended to St. Plain and had the blessing of Hongjun Tiandao's providence and merit, yet their cultivation bases were still revolving around the early chaotic world. As for Feng Qingshan and Mosquito Daoran, Hongjun could only say that they were outliers. He didn't believe that there were people like them all over the world. If that was the case, how could others survive? it would be even harder to talk about the difficulty of cultivation. Unfortunately, he guessed wrong in the end. One's knowledge was determined by one's knowledge. There were indeed not many people like Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin, but they were definitely not few either. Moreover, Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin's qualifications and resources were not very good. It was only because of the timeless ark and the fiend celestial relic that they had made rapid progress in the early stages. However, compared to the true proud sons of heaven, they were worlds apart in terms of resources, providence, fortune, qualifications, and so on. All this was to clarify a problem. The origin realm was really nothing. In the infinite void of the various worlds, some people were even born at the origin realm. Once they reached adulthood, they could break through to the immortal realm. The mark of many great powers to recruit disciples was at the origin realm. Without a cultivation base at the origin realm, one could not even enter the sect. Even if one was not a son of Providence, as long as his qualifications were not bad and he had enough resources, it would not be difficult for him to quickly improve before he reached the peak of the origin realm. Because Fong Qingshan and Hutu had purified the North Continent, Hong Juan's attention was attracted. When he regained his senses and looked at the divine poison marquis and the others, Hong Jun almost gasped in shock. Do you know why? It turned out that in just a few hundred years, the strength of the lifeless Demon Palace team had not undergone earth-shaking changes, but it had also been greatly enhanced. The strength of both the lower and upper levels could not be mentioned in the same breath. Originally, this small team, including the divine poison marquis, had a total of 5 mid-stage primordial chaos cultivators, a dozen early-stage primordial chaos cultivators, and a group of people below the primordial chaos realm. Now, although the divine poison marquis had not broken through, he had reached the peak of the 5th stage primordial chaos realm and was close to breaking through to the 6th stage primordial chaos realm. Although he had not broken through, he was a titled primordial chaos cultivator. Every small improvement could cause his combat strength to soar. In the past, the poison god marquis had only been able to escape unscathed from a late-stage primordial chaos cultivator. Now, it was possible for him to defeat an ordinary 7th-stage primordial chaos cultivator. In addition to the poison god marquis, Madame Baiwa and the woodcutter had actually broken through to the 5th-stage primordial chaos realm. Although the teacher and the gardener had not broken through, they had also reached the peak of the 4th-stage primordial chaos realm. It was only a matter of time before they broke through. As for the dozens of early-stage primordial chaos cultivators, 3 of them broke through to the mid-stage primordial chaos one after another and reached the 4th-stage primordial chaos. They were on par with Madame Baiwa and the others. Although the rest didn't have such a big breakthrough, they basically all had a breakthrough. The 1st-level primordial chaos essence broke through to the 2nd-level primordial chaos essence. The 2nd-level primordial chaos essence broke through to the 3rd-level primordial chaos essence, and the early-stage 3rd-level primordial chaos essence broke through to the peak. Apart from them, 7 of the remaining Sage-to-Be peak experts had broken through to the chaotic essence realm. If so, how could Hong Jun not be horrified? Chapter 1167. In the world of desolation, it was easy to reach the primordial chaos realm. If one had enough opportunities, one could even become an ordinary person in one step. For example, a golden elixir of 9 transformations, a ginseng fruit, a 9,000-year-old peach of immortality, and so on could make an ordinary person become a golden immortal. Merit was even more impressive. With the human clan's 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, the weakest one had broken through to the late-stage Sage-to-Be in just 100 years. However, this was only before the primordial chaos realm. It was different after the primordial chaos realm. This was divided into the cultivation of breaking through to the primordial chaos realm and the primordial chaos realm. There was no need to talk about the cultivation of the 12 realms of chaotic prime, let alone breaking through a realm. Even the slightest bit of improvement would be calculated in thousands of years. However, the divine Poison Marquis and the others had actually made a major breakthrough in just 100 years. This simply overturned the three views of Hong Jun. Compared to breaking through to the primordial chaos realm, it was actually more difficult for a sage to break through to the primordial chaos realm. The difficulty of this bottleneck was between the early stage primordial chaos realm and the middle stage primordial chaos realm. Of course, this difficulty was only relative to the world of desolation or the world of Pangu's chaos. In the world of desolation, if Hong Jun Tiandao did not go easy on the breakthrough to the primordial chaos realm, it would be a complete fantasy unless one used great merit to offset it. Even if one wanted to become a sage, it would not be an easy task. There were two ways to become a sage. One was to use the primordial violet vapor to entrust the primordial spirit to Hong Jun Tiandao. This was the path that Sanxing and the others had taken in Hong Jun. The second path was to use merit to achieve the Tao fruit of a sage. This was the path that the human clan's 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors had taken. Unfortunately, although the human clan and sacred emperors did not perish, in terms of strength, they could not be compared to the sages of Hong Jun Tiandao at all. As for Hutu, if Fang Qingshan had not given her the primordial violet vapor, she could only become an omnipotent being like the human clan's 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. In other words, if one wanted to become a true sage, they had to have the primordial violet qi. Otherwise, it would be futile even if they were given boundless merit. However, Hong Jun had not expected that the subordinates of the divine Poison Marquis and the others would break through to the primordial chaos realm as easily as drinking water. It was even easier than when Fang Qingshan had broken through to the primordial chaos realm in the past. Black Tortoise, who had been tricked by Hong Jun Tiandao, had broken through almost effortlessly. He couldn't help but be shocked. Actually, Hong Jun didn't know much about the multiverse. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so surprised. There's only one way to break through to primordial chaos in desolation, and that was to break through by force, breaking through the bottleneck with unparalleled strength. It was the same for Fang Qingshan and Hong Jun Tiandao. As for Hong Jun's summary of the 3 ways to prove one's Tao through strength, to become a sage through merit, and to cut off the 3 corpses. Apart from the 3 corpses technique, the rest were useless. Although the 3 corpses technique was not bad, it wasn't easy to cut off obsessions. More importantly, the 3 corpses had to become one in order to achieve the Tao through the 3 corpses. However, Hong Jun had missed a point. If one wanted to cut off the 3 corpses to become one had to use a Dharma treasure of the same origin. Therefore, apart from Hong Jun, only Laozi and Fang Qingshan could achieve this in the entire desolation. Both Laozi and Fang Qingshan had done it by accident. Laozi had used the 3 paths of heaven-splitting clear qi, which was also the power of Sanqing's origin, to cut off the 3 corpses because he wanted to walk on the Tao of the 5 elements. As for Fang Qingshan, he had deduced the 5 elements clone technique based on the 3 corpses technique because he wanted to walk on the Tao of the 5 elements. Of course, apart from Fang Qingshan and Laozi, there would be another person who could achieve this in the future. This person was the Shura sovereign. This was because he had used the Blood Sea's origin spiritual treasure, the Blood Shura flag, the Halberd of Sin, and the Bloodthirsty Jade Seal. Of course, he didn't know how long it would take for him to achieve the Tao. He had said all this to show that it was very difficult to break through to the primordial chaos realm in desolation because of the lack of resources. Or rather, it wasn't the lack of resources, but the lack of ways to use them. It was just like before Shenong tasted all the herbs. The herbs were all there, but no one knew how to use them. The boundless void, on the other hand, was vastly different in a myriad of worlds. There were many capable people there. If heaven immortals were as common as dogs in desolation and golden immortals were everywhere, then it wasn't a problem for primordial chaos cultivators to be everywhere in the myriad worlds. This was because the weakest person who could leave the chaotic world was at least at the primordial chaos realm. What? You mean the subordinates of the divine poison marquis? Why don't you think about who the divine poison marquis and the others are? Their subordinates are naturally people of unknown origins. They might have been captured or bought by them, or they might have been driven into a corner and voluntarily surrendered. Putting all this aside for the time being, it was indeed not easy for ordinary people, ordinary desolation worlds, or newborn chaotic worlds like the Pan-Gu chaos to break through to the primordial chaos realm, and the subsequent cultivation was even more difficult. Therefore, after breaking through to the primordial chaos realm, these people wanted to leave the chaotic world and travel the myriad worlds in hopes of finding more and better opportunities and pursuing a higher Tao. However, this was only for ordinary desolation worlds or newborn chaotic worlds like the Pan-Gu chaos. For the chaotic worlds ranked in the top 100, or even the top 300, 500, or 1,000, breaking through to the primordial chaos realm was not difficult, and the cultivation after the primordial chaos realm was not too difficult either. This was even the case for some desolation worlds with deep foundations in those chaotic worlds. They had secret arts like the Three Corpses execution, and there were even many who were better than this. They had pills like the bottleneck breaking pill that could assist in breaking through bottlenecks. They had methods to use various treasured lands to build arrays to increase their chances of breaking through. The reason why they still wanted to travel the myriad worlds was that it was better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books. In order to cultivate, not only were resources important, but one's state of mind was even more important. It was not so obvious when one's cultivation was low, but once one's cultivation was high, one would be considered extremely lucky if they did not suffer from chi deviation, let alone breaking through. Another was the problem of resource allocation. No one knew how much time had passed since the ancient chaotic worlds had existed. Although they had deep foundations, according to the law of the strong getting stronger, their territories and resources had basically been divided up cleanly, just like the land annexation problem in ordinary chaotic worlds. Even if there were the occasional fish that slipped through the net, it was not enough for most people to continue cultivating. As for why no one raised their arms and called for the nobles and generals to have the guts to start a grand revolution, one had to say that they were thinking too much. This was the cultivation world. Even those favored by the heavens who came into being at the right time could only occupy a place for a while. As for breaking the balance and rebuilding the world, that was simply impossible. Chapter 1168. This principle was applicable everywhere. The more ancient a force was, the more bloated, huge, and even a little rigid. However, that was only relatively speaking. As long as there were no major changes, or as long as there were no problems with the pillars of the forces, even if there was a calamity of overturning, they could still turn the tide and save the building from collapsing. As for problems with the pillars, all right, that was indeed a problem. However, that was only relative to those below the immortal realm. Just like in the desolation realm, that was relative to those below the primordial chaos realm. As for those above the primordial chaos realm, look at those sages. Unless the world was destroyed in the desolation realm, nothing would happen to them at all. It was precisely because of this that the stronger the experts, the bigger the force. Coupled with the fact that they had the upper hand, they naturally occupied a bigger portion of the cake. In the future, if one wanted to obtain resources apart from joining them, they would basically only be left with some leftovers. Why would there be people drifting north in the desolation realm? In fact, it was the same reason. The resources in other places had already been distributed. Only the North Continent could still see a glimmer of hope. However, although there were not many resources left, the path of cultivation had been continuously explored by cultivators for thousands of years, and they had walked out of the great path to heaven. For example, in the Pan-Gu chaotic world and the Pan-Gu desolation world, Hong Jun had summarized 3 paths. Among them, other than the 3 corpses slaying, the only auxiliary methods were the primordial violet vapor and the power of merit. In the boundless void, in the myriad realms, there were really 3,000 great paths that could prove the primordial chaos realm. In the boundless void, the myriad realms were too vast, and there were too many people. As more people walked, there were all kinds of paths that could be followed. Perhaps it was by coincidence, by accident, or because they were extremely talented and had the Tao of heaven and earth. Anyway, after they broke through, they could summarize and leave behind experience. It was a good mystic technique. Hongjuan's three corpses slaying was a good way to break through to the primordial chaos realm. However, in the myriad realms and the boundless void, it was only considered average. The reason was that it was difficult to cut off obsession. What was obsession? He couldn't let it go. Since he couldn't let it go, how could he easily cut it off? It was even more difficult to find three primordial spiritual treasures of the same origin. Moreover, it was not enough to have the same origin. The grade of the primordial spiritual treasures could not be low. If it was three inferior grade primordial spiritual treasures of the same origin, even if you cut off the three separations and merge them into one, you would not be able to break through. It was precisely because of this that his grade was limited. If it was in the hands of a relatively small sect or individual cultivator who was similar to the Pan-Gu era, the chaotic world, or a relatively small sect or individual cultivator living in the boundless void, they might be able to keep it a secret. After all, relatively speaking, they were not powerful enough. However, for the top 100, 300, 500, or even the top 1,000 chaotic worlds, this three corpses slaying was just a collection of resources. Because with their strength, there were countless experts at the immortal realm, not to mention the primordial chaos realm. Moreover, they had existed for as long as that side of the world. Therefore, after a long time, there were at least a dozen of such secret techniques in the sutra depository of their sections. Moreover, this was the common ones. If one counted the restricted secret techniques, there would be even more. Moreover, the deeper the foundation and the bigger the sect, the more such things there would be. Moreover, this was only the same as the three corpses slaying. Some of them were of a higher level and might even have a top-notch secret technique. The success rate of these secret techniques was much higher than that of the three corpses slaying, especially the superior and top-notch secret techniques. As long as one followed the secret technique step by step, one would be able to break through naturally. As for the three corpses slaying, even if one combined the three corpses into one might not be able to break through to the primordial chaos realm. Moreover, if one used the three corpses slaying to break through, one would at most be like Fang Qingshan or Laozi, who had other means, opportunities, or deep foundations and could reach the peak of the first stage primordial chaos realm in one leap. However, if one used the top-notch secret technique to break through, one could easily break through to the third stage primordial chaos realm. Even those who surpassed the early stage primordial chaos realm would have no problem breaking through to the mid-stage primordial chaos realm. This was the difference. If one was one step behind, one would be left behind at every step. While one was struggling to break through to the early stage primordial chaos realm step by step, others would break through and reach the mid-stage primordial chaos realm. How could one catch up? This was the problem of one's vision and foundation. It limited one's imagination. As for the poison god Marquis and the others, who were they? They were the top 10 void thieves in the boundless void and members of the lifeless demon palace. What kind of existence was the lifeless demon palace? It was an existence that dozens of immortal realm experts could only end up defeated. Even divine monarchs could only return empty-handed. Their foundation was so strong that it was definitely not inferior to the top 500 or even the top 300 major powers in the boundless void. Moreover, compared to those major powers, one needed to accumulate experience, contribution, and even have to go through sect assessments to obtain secret techniques. In the lifeless demon palace, contribution was the only thing that mattered. As long as one contributed to the demon palace, the scripture depository of the demon palace would be open to one in all aspects. As for whether one could exchange for those things, it would depend on one's ability. Here, there was only one thing, and that was ability. The capable ones would rise, and the mediocre ones would fall. All this was to explain one point. That was, the subordinates of the poison god Marquis had reached the peak of the sage-to-be realm. In addition, They had been robbing and robbing all year round. In order to avoid missing out on good things or opportunities due to secret techniques or other reasons, they had already exchanged for secret techniques and elixirs that could assist them in breaking through in the Demon Palace. As long as they had enough resources, they would be able to break through immediately. On the other hand, these secret techniques were much easier than killing the 3 corpses. Although the pills might not be comparable to the primordial immortal chi and the power of merit, they had been improved by generations of powerhouses and could greatly increase the success rate. Most importantly, it was much easier to obtain them than the primordial immortal chi and the power of merit. The power of merit was easier to obtain, but the amount was greater. Hongming Violet Qi was the foundation of the Great Tao. Thinking about it, Fang Qingshan had only seen 3 of them in the exchange column in the Fiend God Treasury in the Eternal World. Not to mention that, because everything was ready and only lacking one thing, these people broke through not long after they received the resources. As for those who were already in the mixed essence realm, there is no need to mention them. Since the lifeless Demon Palace had secret techniques for breaking through to the mixed essence realm, they naturally had no lack of cultivation techniques for the mixed essence realm. These cultivation techniques were obtained from an ancient inheritance obtained by the extermination demon Venerable and the contributions of the deputy palace masters, elders, and protectors. Most of these cultivation techniques were obtained from robbing. Chapter 1169. Doubt couldn't be passed on easily, and techniques couldn't be passed on to 6 people. Why was that? It was to make them cherish and revere the great Tao. However, if it was too easy to obtain, there wouldn't be such a thing happening now. The Void Bandits were clearly different from those sects that had a strict hierarchy. Their things were easy to obtain, and the bandits only looked at contribution and ability, nothing else. Therefore, they obviously wouldn't hide it like the other sections. Even though contribution points, in a way, limited the spread of techniques, it was still much better than the sections. After all, in order to obtain something, you had to at least put in some effort. Even if you were to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor, you would still hesitate and consider if there was a conspiracy behind it. It was probably because of this reason that many people were reluctant to join the Void Bandits in the beginning. After all, some of them had nowhere else to go, some of them were captured, and some of them were even sold. However, they gradually changed their minds. The strange feeling in their hearts disappeared, and they were filled with a sense of acceptance towards the forces. Of course, this was referring to the major forces like the lifeless Demon Palace, not the ordinary little bandits. After all, the world was bustling for benefits, and the world was bustling for benefits. Only great powers could bring them benefits, and only a place that could bring them benefits could make them feel a sense of belonging in their hearts. In terms of desolation, other than Yang Mei, who was a top chaotic demon god, who had the inheritance of the great Tao, Hong Jun had the creation jade disc, Hong Jun Tiandao's inheritance, and Fang Qingshan had the timeless ark's blessing. The other 3 people had the complete mixed essence cultivation technique. Even Sanxing and the 12 Zhu Wu didn't have the complete mixed essence cultivation technique. He didn't know if Pan Gu didn't inherit it, or if there was a problem with the inheritance, or if Hong Jun Tiandao did something to it. However, Fang Qingshan guessed that there were 2 possibilities. First, whether it was Wu people or Sanxing, because their bloodlines and primordial spirits were incomplete, the marks of Genesis that they inherited were incomplete. However, this possibility was very small, because Fang Qingshan himself had also received the inheritance of the heaven-opening mark. However, apart from the image of Pan Gu opening the sky, most of it was about how to cultivate to primordial chaos. There is almost no inheritance after primordial chaos. Secondly, the legacy had been passed down, but had been sealed. If one wanted to cultivate it and break the seal, they would have to meet certain conditions. It could be the density of one's bloodline or the quality of one's essence soul. The rapid advancement of Marquis, of Poison, and the others had piqued Hongjuan's interest. If they could capture them alive, not only could they get rid of the hidden threat, but more importantly, they could learn more about the infinite void and the infinite world through them. This was also of great interest to Hong Jun. Stones from other mountains could be used to improve jade. Originally, Hong Jun had thought that he had the creation jade disc, which was suitable for Hong Jun Tiandao. However, after seeing the development of Marquis of Poison and the others, he suddenly realized that he had been a frog in a well and arrogant. Although he didn't know much about the foreign world or the infinite void, he could see the whole picture from a glimpse. If he could obtain their cultivation techniques, it would definitely be helpful for him to get rid of Hong Jun Tiandao, or for Hong Jun Tiandao to survive the infinite calamity. He had to act personally because he had no other choice. Although Marquis of Poison was not worth mentioning to Hong Jun, his cultivation had reached the 5th stage origin immortal realm. Madame Bai Hua, Woodcutter, and the others were all experts among the origin immortal realm. In the entire desolation, apart from himself, only Yang Mei and Bloodsea had the ability to capture Marquis of Poison and the others. As for Sanqing, Niuhua, Jian, Zhuanti, and the others, even Ro and Hudu, none of them had the ability to do so. However, Yang Mei and Bloodsea were his enemies. It would be good enough if they didn't create trouble for him and work together. As for helping him, Hong Jun had never thought of doing so. Therefore, Hong Jun, who didn't have any soldiers available, could only act personally. As for Hong Jun Tiandao, he couldn't move without permission and couldn't stay away from desolation for long periods of time. Indeed, this was also one of the reasons he didn't send a saint. However, he couldn't move without permission and couldn't stay away from desolation for long periods of time. Apart from his main body, he still had the 3 corpses. Chapter 1170. The decapitation of the 3 corpses was indeed a good secret technique for breaking through to the origin realm. Otherwise, even if it had an obsession that was difficult to remove and required at least 3 magic treasures of the same origin, it could still be considered a mid-level secret technique for breaking through to the origin realm. The decapitation of the 3 corpses was not only a secret technique for breaking through to the origin realm, but also a clone technique that was not weaker than the one-breath Sanqing. Whether the 3 corpses became one or not, as long as the 3 corpses were severed, one could obtain a good clone. As for how good it was, it depended on what one used to sever the 3 corpses. If the Khanate item used was too trashy, the clone would naturally be of little value. However, this did not apply to Hong Jun. After all, he had used the broken creation jade archive of the Chaos Treasure to sever the 3 corpses. Therefore, the 3 corpses that Hong Jun had severed were similar to the one-breath Sanqing's divine power. They were not any weaker than the main body. Compared to the clone formed by the one-breath Sanqing's divine power, which could not leave the main body's vicinity for a long time, the 3 corpses could replace the main body to travel the heavens. Later, in the boundless void, the places where Sanqing and the others left footprints were left behind by their 3 corpses. It was better to act than to be tempted. With this thought, Hong Jun put into action Desolation Realm outside the Chaos Layer. In the endless chaos void, the turbulent chaos windstorm seemed to have stopped fluctuating, and the atmosphere of the entire void seemed to have been completely frozen. A formless pressure was constantly being transmitted out, filling up the entire space between heaven and earth. The pressure made it difficult for the human face to breathe. The reason for this was that the divine poison Marquis and the others had been wantonly killing in the last few hundred years, causing everyone to be alarmed at the slightest sound. Then, Hong Jun made his move. Rumble. A series of thunderous sonic booms rang out incessantly. As the saying went, delay brings change. Moreover, the Desolation Realm still had a hidden danger. As a precaution, Hong Jun's first move was a thunderous one, seeking to solve the problem as quickly as possible. Suddenly, a huge palace could be seen charging through the chaos, causing the chaos space to distort. However, the palace was emitting a boundless Taoist rhyme. The Lingxiao King Palace and the Demon Master Palace were not worth mentioning in front of it. It was like the king of 10,000 palaces, the emperor of 10,000 halls. In the surroundings, countless living beings, heaven, earth, human, God, Ghost, Ing Lin Mao, Yukuan, Azura, Sorcerer, and many other races gave out pious prayers. Their faith power fused into the palace, subtly increasing its power. The light of the eternal prosperity of the great Tao was radiating from it. 3 ancient characters appeared on the signboard in the center of the palace. Purple Cloud Palace. Yes, this was the special treasure of Hongjun, the Purple Cloud Palace. As the saying goes, even a lion uses its full strength to capture a rabbit. A fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. After failing miserably in the hands of Fong Qingshan, Hongjun did not want to fall into the hands of the god of poison Marquis and the rest. Therefore, not only did he send out the evil corpse, who was the strongest in combat, he also brought out the Purple Cloud Palace, the chaotic spiritual treasure. The strength of faith was the seed that Hongjun planted after he started preaching about the great Tao. As long as one cultivated the techniques passed down by the Purple Cloud Palace, or if one could trace back to its roots, Hongjun would be able to take the opportunity to obtain a portion of fate and a portion of the strength of faith. Although it would not be as much as what they obtained from the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace, it would still accumulate. On the walls of the palace, the pillars were densely covered with sculptures and murals. These murals depicted high-spirited figures of desolation who wanted to compete with heaven. Dijun, Tai, the Duke of the East, the Queen Mother of the West, and even Sanxing, Jinjuni, Niuhua, and even Hutu. Every one of them was vivid and lifelike, and the aura they exuded was extremely clear. It was as if the real body was standing right in front of them, causing their hearts to tremble. These were all left behind by those who had extraordinary achievements in the Purple Cloud Palace. In fact, Hongjun could even summon them to battle, and they would not be any weaker than the real body. As for why there was no Fong Qingshan, it was because Fong Qingshan had taken the path of transcendence. When he achieved origin, he had severed his karma. Moreover, his fate and karma had already been completely absorbed by him when he obtained the Heaven Chessboard and the Timeless Arkansas. Only someone with a cultivation far higher than his and a treasure that could crush the Heaven Chessboard and the Timeless Ark could control his fate and karma. Currently, neither Hongjun nor the Purple Cloud Palace possessed such an ability. Putting all this aside, just as Hongjun was driving the Purple Cloud Palace toward the Lifeless Palace, the Poison Marquis, and the other stronghold in the chaos of Pangu, an ominous premonition rose in their hearts. Because the Poison God Marquis had broken through to the 6th level of primordial chaos, his strength had greatly increased. Just as he was about to celebrate, he suddenly had a sudden impulse. The shadow of death loomed over him, and he was immediately alarmed. After coming out of seclusion, he saw that Madame Baihua and the others had equally ugly expressions. Clearly, they had also received a warning. Everyone exchanged glances. They did not need to guess to know what was going on. They came so quickly. That's right. I thought we would have to wait for at least 1,000 years. I did not expect them to come so quickly. Different situations call for different actions. There's nothing to be afraid of. I wonder who is coming. As long as it is not the ruler of Hongjun Tiandao, I think it will be fine. Since we have already achieved true seer, let's not hold any hopes of getting lucky. Just as Madame Baihua and the others were discussing, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from outside the stronghold. Everyone exchanged glances and leaped out at the same time. They saw a vast, majestic palace materialize from illusory, stirring up 1,000 layers of chaos wind waves. Whoosh! Following that, the palace doors opened, and a man filled with an evil, murderous, and destructive aura walked out. He held a steel spear in his hand. As soon as he opened his eyes, a pair of sharp, pitch-black eyes shot out and landed straight on the god of Poison Marquis and the others. Crack! Crack! For a time, a series of cracking sounds could be heard. The peerless array that was used to protect the stronghold, which was comparable to the 3 ultimate arrays of desolation, began to emit sounds of being overwhelmed. Hideous cracks spread out like a spider's web. Even the subordinates below the primordial chaos realm felt a bone-piercing, tearing sensation all over their bodies, even though they were separated by the array. It was as if their bodies would completely collapse and be twisted into pieces under the gaze. Their minds were shaken, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood as they fell to the ground with serious injuries. The expressions of the Poison Marquis and the others changed drastically when they saw this. Although they had already guessed that the ruler of Hongjun Tiandao of Desolation was not someone to be trifled with, they did not expect him to be this powerful. Just his gaze alone made them feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Not to mention the captain, even the deputy hall master would not be this powerful. Chapter 1171. As expected, it was a wise choice to avoid desolation. The divine Poison Marquis and the others rejoiced when they saw Hong Jun. Fortunately, they hadn't recklessly attacked desolation. They hadn't expected that Hong Jun, the master of Hongjun Tiandao, would still be so powerful after leaving desolation. If he had used the power of Hongjun Tiandao in desolation, he would have been more powerful than the deputy hallmaster. He might even have been able to fight back against the hallmaster. At the same time, they felt pity. After all, they hadn't even developed 1,000th of the chaos, but their strength had improved by leaps and bounds. If they were given a little more time, their original plan might not be impossible to realize. Unfortunately, Hong Jun wouldn't just watch them grow stronger. He wouldn't make the same mistake again. "Are you the people from the foreign domain?" Hong Jun asked before the divine Poison Marquis and the others could say anything. "You're just a group of people who haven't even reached the late primordial chaos realm. How dare you stir up trouble in our world? You're simply courting death. Is there no one in the foreign domain who can send you here to die? You're looking at the sky from the bottom of a well." The divine Poison Marquis and the others almost choked to death when they heard Hong Jun's words. They couldn't help but sneer when they regained their senses. Although this place was a chaotic world, it didn't even have an expert at the immortal realm. Not to mention the top-ranked chaotic worlds in the entire universe. Even some primitive worlds were stronger than their entire world. However, with this kind of power, he dared to laugh at the entire universe and the immeasurable void. Who gave him the courage to do that? It was true that the ignorant were fearless. We're enough for a mere aboriginal. Oh, aboriginal? Hong Jun's eyes glinted fiercely when he heard that. Then let me see what you can do to deal with the calamity of death that I, an aboriginal, will bring. The calamity of death. The divine Poison Marquis and the others exchanged glances and smiled. "I'm afraid you won't get what you want today." "Oh? Could it be that you think you can escape from my palm today?" Hong Jun asked expressionlessly. "If you were at the immortal realm, we would have to stay away from you. However, you haven't even reached the 5th decay of the celestial being. You dare to talk nonsense. Natives are natives. You don't know how high the sky is. Since that's the case, go to hell." What kind of people were Hong Jun? He was a top-notch existence after Pangu. Even though he had suffered a loss in the hands of Fong Qingshan, it was because of the eternal God Lotus. Even a top-notch demon god like Yang Mei was almost forced to leave his hometown. As for the divine Poison Marquis and the others, they were merely at the 5th stage primordial chaos realm, yet they dared to mock him over and over again. Who were they relying on? Could it be that there was an existence like the everlasting lotus behind them? Hong Jun did not believe that. After all, even the principal will of the chaos world was afraid of such an existence. Thus, he had directly acted. "Kill." Hong Jun spat out coldly. The purple cloud palace behind him suddenly released thousands of rays of divine light and crashed forward without hesitation. The purple cloud palace was comparable to a chaos spiritual treasure. Hong Jun had a 10th-stage primordial chaos realm cultivation. With these two added together, even a 10th-stage primordial chaos realm cultivator would not dare to let their guard down, let alone the divine Poison Marquis and the others. I've been waiting for you." The divine Poison Marquis's expression changed slightly. However, he did not retreat. Instead, he took out a scroll as fast as he could. It was purple gold in color and looked extremely noble. The aura it contained was vast. Even the purple cloud palace seemed weak in front of it. It was unknown what material it was made of. It was neither gold nor jade, neither copper nor iron, and it even emitted a faint fragrance. When he opened the scroll, he saw a scale engraved on one side. This scale made people feel like they were looking at the balanced Great Tao at a glance. An arena was engraved on the other side. It was shrouded in a faint layer of blood-red light, showing how dangerous the arena was. This was a rare treasure that the divine Poison Marquis had obtained from an ancient cave abode during one of his expeditions. If it were not for the fact that this was a one-time treasure that could not be moved after use, and that it also had a limit on its use, making it useless against immortal realm experts, it would probably be comparable to a Chaos Cardinal treasure. The Balanced Contract. Once it was used, it could communicate with the balanced Great Tao and be protected by it. Anyone whose cultivation exceeded the host's, but had not reached the immortal realm, would be suppressed to the same realm as the arena master. Of course, if one's cultivation was insufficient, one could forcibly increase it. However, it was already insufficient, so forcibly increasing it would be useless. Puff! The divine Poison Marquis stretched out his hand and hit his chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood that landed on the scroll. Swoosh! The balanced, rare treasure scroll seemed to be triggered. It instantly released a strange divine light that spread like a tide. A strange vortex appeared on the scroll, emitting a strange, devouring power. At the same time, Madame Baiwa waved her hand and threw out a mountain of flesh into the vortex. In an instant, the scroll's power seemed to increase limitlessly. The mountain of flesh was full of qi and blood. Fang Qingshan, Mosquito Dowrin, and the sky-supporting black tortoise were not worth mentioning in front of it. This mountain of flesh was not just any ordinary mountain. Part of it was the divine Poison Marquis, stockpiling the ferocious beasts, demonic beasts, creatures that had died in his hands, and the iron blood qi from various battlefields. Then there was the flesh of the various native ferocious beasts that he had killed in the chaotic world. Not only was there a lot of flesh, but its quality was also not low. After all, anything that could catch the divine Poison Marquis' attention had to be at least at the primordial chaos realm. The flesh was continuously sucked into the scroll. This scene looked no different from that of a demon. It was exceptionally frightening. After all, the orthodox path would not normally use such a method of blood sacrifice. In fact, this balanced scroll did not require a blood sacrifice. It only needed to be torn open and the host's essence blood was absorbed. But what kind of person was the divine Poison Marquis? That was a void thief. Poison referred to the great Tao that he cultivated, as well as his methods. He was ruthless to others and ruthless to himself. Although he knew that it would be fine as long as he tore open the scroll, he did not know how long it had been since he had obtained it. Because it had not been preserved properly, the spiritual power within had been damaged. Moreover, this was a low-level balanced scroll that only targeted those below the immortal realm. As far as the divine Poison Marquis was concerned, the Pangu Primal Chaos and the Pangu Desolation realm did not seem to have any immortal realm existences. However, the absence of immortal realm experts did not mean that there was no immortal realm combat power. For example, peak existences like him, who had the title of Primordial Chaos Realm, could rival ordinary immortal realm experts after entering Deva, Decay Stage 5. Chapter 1172. Strength did not only depend on one's realm. If that was all there was to it, then as long as they revealed their cultivation levels and released their auras, they would be able to determine who was stronger and who was weaker. There wouldn't be so many problems. Generally speaking, the most crucial factors that determined one's strength lay in one's realm, magical powers, cultivation techniques, spirit treasures, and even one's foundation. The more solid one's foundation was, the more mysterious the cultivation method one cultivated, the more powerful the divine power one comprehended, and the higher the grade of the spirit treasure one used. One could be invincible among those in the same realm and obtain a unique title. One could even challenge those of a higher realm as easily as drinking water. Why was Fang Qingshan able to challenge those of a higher level? It was because of this. This was also the reason why the divine poison marquis could escape unscathed from a late-stage primordial chaos expert. It was precisely because he had some understanding of this that he was a living example. As a result, the poison god marquis was worried that there were similar existences in Pan-Gu's chaos world. Although he didn't think that there was a top-notch titled primordial chaos expert here, it was better to be safe than sorry. Hong Jun had suffered a loss at Feng Qingshan's hands. Everyone knew that even a lion would go all out to catch a rabbit. How could someone like the poison god marquis, who had been living on the edge of a knife all year round, not understand this logic? As a void bandit, if he wanted to live long, other than strength, the most important thing was to be careful. Caution was the parent of safety. Moreover, for a chaos world, no matter how careful they were, it was never too much. Even though this was a new world, even though this place had experienced a great calamity and its power level had declined. However, no one could guarantee that there weren't any hidden experts here. Even if there wasn't, the clone of the leader of Hongjun Tiandao in front of them was enough to make them suffer. After considering all these factors, the poison god marquis came up with the idea of a blood sacrifice. As for whether the method of blood sacrifice would attract the hatred of the great Tao, the answer was no. In the eyes of the great Tao, it didn't care if you were right or evil, good or evil. In its eyes, everyone was the same. As long as you didn't anger the heavens and people, as long as you provided it with enough sacrifices, it could give you more power. In particular, the great Tao of equalization emphasized fair trade. This balance scroll was originally only meant for those below the immortal rank. In fact, due to its preservation or the fact that it had existed for too long, it might even be a little unstable. In other words, a half-step immortal realm expert could break this restriction. However, after the sacrifice of so much flesh and blood, the balance scroll was completely different now. At least normal primal chaos, undying, would not be able to break the restriction of this scroll. It was different from the 12 floors of the Hunyuan realm. The immortal realm was divided into the primal chaos immortal realm, the great Tao immortal realm, and the true name immortal realm. However, legend had it that there were two more realms, the primordial immortal realm and the origin immortal realm. The so-called primal chaos immortal was actually similar to the sages. However, as long as the saint was immortal, he would not perish. As for the primal chaos, it was the primal chaos that was immortal, and he would not perish. He would coexist with the primal chaos. As for the eternal Grand Tao, it meant that as long as the Grand Tao existed, he would never die. In other words, even if the chaotic world he had entrusted himself to was destroyed, he would still be safe and sound. As for the final true name, immortal, that involved another level. On a smaller scale, why couldn't he mention the name of someone with a high cultivation base? In fact, this involved the issue of one's real name. As long as this person's true name was still circulating in the world, and as long as someone mentioned this name, then even if this person's primordial chaos had decayed, the great Tao had decayed, and his body had perished, he could still come back to life. As long as one reached the true name immortal level, they would be considered a powerhouse in the entire universe, a giant. Lifeless Demon Palace's extermination demon lord was such a powerhouse. However, compared to normal true name immortals, he was even stronger. He was a title immortal, and even amongst title immortals, he was considered a peak existence. Because of this, facing the encirclement of several worlds and dozens of immortal realm experts, Lifeless Demon Palace not only made them unable to return, but also didn't suffer a huge loss. Even the Divine King realm experts couldn't do anything, so it was obvious. At this realm, they could actually start breaking through to the next realm. Once they reached the Undying realm, they would be the true big shots in the entire limitless void. He was an existence that could cause the entire void and the myriad worlds to tremble with just a stomp of his foot. In the boundless void and the myriad of worlds in the universe, the strength of a force was measured by whether it had a carefree God-King expert other than the Foundation, the number of people, the blessed land, the territory, and so on. If they did, then even if their foundation was insufficient, or they had no successor, or even if they only had a small mountain or a broken temple, they would still be a force that no one dared to provoke. If they didn't, then even if they controlled several chaos worlds, had countless disciples and geniuses under their command, and had an incredibly rich foundation of resources, they still wouldn't be able to enter the ranks of the major powers. In fact, it was even possible that they would attract the attention of other major powers because of their wealth, which would lead to their destruction. This was the intimidation of a peak expert. Back then, Lifeless Demon Palace's extermination demon lord escaped from the undying God King, but Lifeless Demon Palace's forces did not come out unscathed. This was also one of the reasons why the Lifeless Demon Palace had been quiet for a long time and avoided the top 100 forces in the universe. With such an expert, no matter how small a force was, it would still be at the top. Without such an expert, no matter how big a force was, it would be like a castle in the air. It could be toppled in an instant. Of course, the division of the undying God King realm was a story for another time. Let's talk about the last two realms of the undying God realm, Grand Immortal Realm and Origin Immortal Realm. These two realms basically didn't exist in the infinite void in the current myriad heavens and myriad worlds. This was because everyone had already broken through the undying God realm when their true name was immortal. As for the reason, it was because in the current universe, the limitless void didn't have Grand Immortal Realm. As for Origin Immortal Realm, it had already disappeared since the ancient times. We know the division of worlds. The small ones are Paradise, Minor Thousand, Medium Thousand, and Great Thousand Worlds. Above them are Desolation World and Chaos World. Chaos World was the main world of the limitless void, and it was also the strongest world. The top 100 and top 10 worlds were all ancient Chaos Worlds. In fact, above the Chaos World was the Primordial World. Just like how the Great Wilderness World had evolved from the Chaos World, the Chaos World had also been created from the Primordial World. As for the foundation of Grand Tao, Primordial Purple Chi, it was actually a special kind of Primordial World spiritual energy. It was similar to the difference between the innate spiritual energy of Desolation World, the innate 5 elements spiritual energy, the innate yin-yang spiritual energy, and the innate primordial energy. Chapter 1173. Qi Training. Qi Training. Qi Training is the qi of heaven and earth. In a world, if the qi is divided according to the grade, it can be divided into chaos, innate, and Hotian qi. According to the type, there are purple qi, Tai Yin qi, Tai Yang qi, Tian Gang qi, Disha qi, Yin Yang 5 elements qi, Qian Kun qi, and so on. Fang Qingshan once obtained a group of primordial qi from the key of Desolate God in the immortal world, which is an extremely powerful origin qi. In the world of desolation, Pan Gu Sanqing is Pan Gu's primordial spirit divided into 3 parts and then merged with the 3 heaven-opening clear qi. This heaven-opening clear qi is also a top spiritual qi. In terms of mystery, it is still chaos qi, and the Disha qi in Wu people's flesh and blood is actually the same existence as the heaven-opening clear qi. In this way, the primordial purple qi is actually a special kind of spiritual qi in the primordial world compared to the ordinary primordial qi. Just like in the world of desolation, ordinary innate spiritual qi is the same existence as the heaven-opening clear qi. After leaving the primordial world, this kind of spiritual qi is known as the foundation of the Great Way, a shortcut to becoming a sage, and the key to refining treasures. The power of the primordial world can be imagined. There's another world above the primordial world, which is the origin world. This is the source of all worlds and the origin of all great ways. Unfortunately, this world has been hidden before the primordial world was created. Not to mention the immortal experts, even the more powerful divine kings, divine emperors, except for the most ancient people, have not seen it. The most powerful existence Fang Qingshan has ever seen, the everlasting lotus, does not exist in the land of origin, but in the primordial world. Even the primordial world and the origin world cannot be found, and many people do not even know that there are such two worlds above the chaotic world. How can they talk about the primordial immortal world and the origin immortal world? The primordial immortality realm was still relatively easy to achieve. There were records of the boundless void in the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. Moreover, it could be achieved as long as one condensed the grand Tao of Grand Mist. To those major powers, many geniuses and geniuses would suppress their cultivation base. They would only break through to the God King realm after reaching the primordial undying realm. This way, not only would they be able to walk further, they would be invincible in the same realm, even if their mystic arts and spiritual treasures were inferior to others. As for the origin of immortality, not even God Emperors and God Emperors had seen it before. There were only a few records about it. So who could achieve it? Luckily, even if he couldn't break through to the origin undying realm or the primordial undying realm, as long as he reached the true name undying realm, it wouldn't stop him from breaking through to the unfettered God King realm. Let's not talk about that for now. Because of the sacrificial ritual, Poison God Marquis's balance scroll was something that even primal chaos immortal realm experts couldn't break. In the Pan-Gu chaos world, let alone now, even at its peak, it was likely that no one other than Pan-Gu had been able to possess the power of an eternal. Now that Pan-Gu had died, there was probably no one else in the chaotic world who had such combat power other than the origin will of the chaotic world. As long as the origin will of the chaotic world did not feel threatened, it would not make a move. This was because even the origin will of the chaotic world had been heavily injured during the Great Tribulation. As a result, it had not recovered even after so many years. Furthermore, with the sacrifice of flesh and blood, the scroll of equalization began to burn at lightning speed. In an instant, a vast and mighty force began to descend through the void. Not good. Something's wrong. What the hell is this thing? Is it really something like the last time? The moment the Poison God Marquis took out the balance scroll, Hong Jun's expression turned solemn. He instinctively felt an ominous aura. This situation seemed somewhat familiar. During the first Great Shaman Yao War, Hong Jun and Yang Mei had fought in the primordial chaos. Fang Qingshan had taken out the timeless arc and communicated with the everlasting lotus to ascend. This seemed to be the case. However, compared to the everlasting lotus, the great Tao of equalization seemed much weaker. Even so, Hong Jun's expression was ashen. Should I make a move, or should I not? Once bitten, twice shy. Hong Jun had been frightened by the everlasting lotus. Although the great Tao of equalization was not as powerful as the everlasting lotus, a man of wealth would not sit under the eaves. A wise man would not stand under a collapsing wall. It was better to be safe than sorry. What if he made a move and ended up dying or being severely injured? Hong Jun was not afraid of that. What he was afraid of was what would happen after he died and was severely injured. After all, there were powerful enemies on the outside and crafty people on the inside. Once he showed weakness, people would immediately pounce on him like a pack of wolves that had smelled blood. However, Hong Jun was not willing to just watch the other party use their trump card without making a move. Just as Hong Jun was hesitating, the great Tao of equalization finally descended. Vaguely, Hong Jun sensed that a mysterious power had locked onto him. This was a unique nomological power that came from the boundless void beyond the chaos. It was irresistible and unavoidable. At the same time, a message suddenly appeared in his mind, allowing Hong Jun to understand what was going on. It turned out that the scroll that the Poison God Marquis had taken out was called the Fair Arena. After tearing the scroll, one could communicate with the great Tao of equalization. The host would be protected by the great Tao of equalization, and only immortal experts could break the rules. Of course, although it was a guard, it was not impossible to deal with. However, if one wanted to kill one's opponent, one had to follow the rules of the great Tao of equalization. There were two ways to deal with the host. Firstly, one had to have immortal combat power and break the restrictions by force. Strength and experts would receive preferential treatment, and special privileges no matter where they went. However, although Hong Jun was strong, he had experienced the first great Magi demon war and gained courage after being humiliated. Furthermore, the sage had ruled the world, the integration of the heavenly demon sky, the appearance of the earth tunnel, the collapse of Mount Buzhou, and the prosperity of the human Tao. Not only had he made up for his losses, but his cultivation had also soared again. Now, without borrowing the power of Hong Jun Tiandao, Hong Jun had already reached the 10th stage of primordial chaos, the peak of primordial chaos. With the support of Hong Jun Tiandao's power, he could instantly break through to the 12th stage of primordial chaos. If he could fuse with the Tao and become one with Hong Jun Tiandao, he could even reach the Deva Decay Stage 5. If he disregarded everything and went all out, it was not impossible for him to unleash immortal combat power for a short period of time. However, this place was far away from the desolation. Even if Hong Jun wanted to borrow power, he could not unleash his power. More importantly, even in the desolation, he might not be able to do anything to the Poison God Marquis. If the Poison God Marquis did not use the blood sacrifice technique, Hong Jun could really break the restrictions by going all out. However, it was impossible now, because even ordinary primordial chaos immortal experts could not do it now. Even if Hong Jun had immortal combat power, it was only comparable to ordinary primordial chaos immortal experts. Chapter 1174. Since he couldn't use force to break the rules, he had to follow the rules. The other way was to get on the stage and fight against the host. However, for the sake of fairness, no matter how high the warrior's cultivation base was, as long as he wasn't at the immortal realm, he would be suppressed to the same realm as the host. In the same realm, as long as he could defeat the host, he could get the stake. If it was a life and death battle, he could even take everything from the loser: fate, fortune, treasure, technique. Fortunately, this scroll was more humane. It didn't force the participants to enter the arena, and it didn't have to be a life and death battle. This wasn't something like a life and death contract. It didn't have to be a battle to the death, and it didn't have to be a battle to the death. It didn't have to be a life and death battle. As long as Hong Jun didn't attack the opponent with a fair stage, he wouldn't violate the rules. Of course, fairness was relative. Although it protected the host from being bullied by those with a higher cultivation base, at the same time, they couldn't attack those with a lower cultivation base. In other words, after activating this contract, Poison Marquis and the others couldn't attack randomly. Once he attacked another creature, his cultivation base would be suppressed to the same realm as that creature. Thus, this balance scroll had its pros and cons. Of course, Hong Jun didn't know about this. What he feared now was that if he were to make a move, then he would definitely be suppressed to the same level as the Poison Marquis. Hong Jun felt a wave of vigilance towards this, and his heart was filled with hesitation. He no longer pushed the Purple Cloud Palace forward with an indomitable will. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad either. The good thing was that caution was the parent of safety. On the path of cultivation, every step was dangerous. Only with a heart, as if treading on thin ice, could one go further. The bad thing was that being overly cautious would cause one to miss a good opportunity, just like how he dealt with Fang Qingshan that year. Although he needed to tread on thin ice, he also needed to be courageous and diligent. However, a man of wealth shouldn't sit under a tree. Hong Jun didn't want to suppress himself to fight Poison Marquis at the same realm. Not to mention the fact that he didn't have a chance of winning. Even if he did, he didn't want to take the risk. Just like how he dealt with Ro that year, he invited Five-Element Ancestor and the others to help him instead of confronting Ro right from the start. Personality determined the way he acted. Ooh, the Poison God Marquis and the others could not help but heave a sigh of relief when they sensed an invisible force locking onto them. After all, even though the Divine Poison Marquis was strong and was a titled Primordial Chaos expert, he had his limits. A 9th-stage Primordial Chaos expert being able to escape unscathed against a late-stage Primordial Chaos expert was already considered lucky. As for peak primordial chaos. The gap between the 9th stage primordial chaos and the 10th stage primordial chaos was even greater than the gap between the 6th stage primordial chaos and the 9th stage primordial chaos. If they really fought, the poison god Marquis was confident that even if he used all his trump cards, he would not last more than 3 moves against Hong Jun. But now everything was fine. Looking at Hong Jun's fearful expression, the god of poison Marquis and the others could finally heave a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, from now on, he could no longer plunder resources and raise his cultivation as he had before. However, every peck and every drink was a fixed number. If he didn't use the scroll of equalization, putting aside harvesting resources and raising his cultivation, he might even lose his life. In addition, although there was the restriction of a fair arena, this didn't mean that they couldn't attack. It was just that there were restrictions. If they attacked someone with a lower cultivation level than them, they would be on the same level. However, they were confident that there were few opponents at the same level as them. Even if there were 1 or 2 geniuses among the desolation experts, they would definitely be in the minority. Furthermore, as long as they didn't activate the life-death arena, they would only have to pay a small price even if they failed. As long as they didn't die, there would always be hope. Therefore, they could still accept it. Humph, I didn't expect you to have such an unusual treasure. I have underestimated you. Hong Jun glanced at the divine poison Marquis and the others with an ugly expression as he spoke slowly. Haha, there's still many things you underestimate. The divine poison Marquis and the others exchanged glances and smiled. However, do you think that you can rest easy just by relying on the protection of the great Tao of equalization? Hong Jun's expression turned cold. If I wanted to, it wouldn't be difficult for me to communicate with the origin will of chaos and break the protection. Haha. The divine poison Marquis and the others' expressions changed when they heard this. They knew that what Hong Jun had said was the truth. However, they quickly calmed down. Even though they didn't know the specifics, they also understood that it wasn't easy to get the origin will of chaos to attack, unless it was a threat to the safety of this world. If it was that simple, Hong Jun would have attacked a long time ago, just like before. He wouldn't be here to waste time with them. Actually, it was just as the divine poison Marquis and the others had guessed. Hong Jun was indeed just threatening them. Communicating with the origin will of chaos and breaking the protection of the great Tao of equalization would consume a lot of energy. If Pangu's primordial chaos hadn't experienced the great tribulation of creation, it would be a piece of cake. However, the price he had to pay now was too high. Most importantly, he couldn't contact the origin will of chaos at all. If the Taoist really wants to do that, we can only admit defeat and stretch out our necks to be chopped off. The divine poison Marquis said straightforwardly. Upon hearing this, Hong Jun couldn't help but choke. Just as the divine poison Marquis had guessed, Hong Jun wouldn't have the time to waste on them if he could get rid of them easily. Humph! Even if I don't communicate with the origin will of the world, I don't believe that this great Tao protection will always exist. Hong Jun sneered as he thought about the weakness of this protection. Indeed, there was no such thing as a free lunch. There was no such thing as a free lunch. Why would the great Tao always protect you? It was just an exchange of equal value. This was because the person who had refined the scroll had deposited a bit of origin energy in it. There was also the power that the divine poison Marquis and the others had attracted through the blood sacrifice to exchange for the great Tao's protection. Once the origin energy was exhausted and the power of the blood sacrifice was gone, the great Tao of equalization would withdraw its protection. When that time came, he would have to face a peak primordial chaos existence like Hong Jun believed that the divine poison Marquis and the others would definitely die. Unfortunately, Hong Jun's words couldn't scare the divine poison Marquis and the others. After all, they had already thought of a way to deal with this weakness. Humph! Do you think that we're alone? The divine poison Marquis sneered as well. What do you mean? Upon hearing this, Hong Jun's expression didn't change much, but his heart skipped a beat. What do I mean? I mean what you've understood. The divine poison Marquis sneered. I guess you don't know much about the boundless void and the myriad realms. Let me teach you a thing or two about it. With that, the divine poison marquis briefly explained the situation of the void to Hongjun. Chapter 1175. I can tell you very clearly that I'm from the lifeless demon palace. This is one of the top forces in the myriad heavens and realms. Just the mention of their name strikes fear in everyone. Why was the poison god marquis so kind to inform Hongjun about the situation of the 10,000 worlds? In fact, it was just a way to put pressure on Hongjun. He hoped that Hongjun would refrain from taking action and not do something that would cause both sides to lose more than they gain. After explaining the situation briefly, the divine poison marquis smirked. We're just a small team in the lifeless demon palace. Even I don't know how many people like us are out there. Above us, there's still the captain, vice hall master, elders, protectors, vice palace master, and palace master. Not to mention the others. Even our captain might not be weaker than you. What do you think will happen to you if I summon them here? Hongjun's expression changed when he heard this. Even though he didn't know much about the universe, he had learned a thing or two from the great Tao ever since he was tricked by the everlasting lotus. He didn't think that the divine poison marquis and the others were lying. Besides, he had the ability to tell if they were lying or not. Furthermore, the divine poison marquis was very confident when he said that. It was obvious that he wasn't bluffing. Then why don't you send a message to your superiors right now? Hongjun knew that he couldn't force the divine poison marquis to do anything out of desperation. Therefore, he took a deep breath and said coldly, "Also, do you think I don't know how to seal the primal chaos? Do you think your message will be able to be sent out smoothly? If you can't, do you think I'll be afraid of the forces behind you? Moreover, don't place your hopes on them being able to deduce this place through your calculations. This primal chaos world has existed for so long, but apart from you all who stumbled into it, no one else from the other side has come here. While it's not impossible to say that it's impossible for them to locate this place, the price and time they would have to pay would clearly be extraordinary." The more Hongjun spoke, the more confident he became. It was as if he was cheering himself on. Hee. The divine poison marquis and the others exchanged a smile. Even though you're strong, your knowledge is limited. As he spoke, he ignored Hongjun's anger and continued. Without special means, there's no way you'll be able to intercept the transmission of information from the lifeless Devil Palace. The only way you'll be able to do so is if the prime will of the Chaos World activates a lockdown. However, if that's the case, then we'll return to the previous problem. The loss outweighs the gain. As for why we didn't inform the higher-ups immediately, it's not hard to understand. The world is bustling for profit, and the world is bustling for profit. The reason why we're doing this is naturally for profit. You might not know how great the benefits of a newborn chaos world are. Right now, you're only using less than 1% of it. Although we can get a generous reward for reporting this information, it is obviously insignificant compared to developing it ourselves. Don't you see, it's only been a short time, but our strength has already made a qualitative leap. So, unless it's absolutely necessary, we won't report it. Otherwise, we won't even get a share of the soup. However, in the end, if we really have no choice, we can only settle for the next best thing. At least our safety is guaranteed, and we can also get a reward. Damn it! Hearing this, Hongjun couldn't help but curse inwardly. At the same time, thousands of thoughts ran through his mind. He was thinking a way to deal with this. So, now it's up to the Taoist to make his choice. Is he going to fight to the death with us? Or is he going to take what he needs and work together for a win-win situation? Good for you, good for me, and good for everyone. Seeing that Hongjun was intimidated, the divine poison marquis and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Just as they said, unless it was absolutely necessary, they wouldn't be willing to report it. After all, compared to the benefits they were currently receiving, the reward was somewhat negligible. Take what we need. Hongjun's heart skipped a beat. Yes, the divine poison marquis nodded. Now that the fair arena has been established, we can be considered to have a relatively fair arena between us. We can fight each other to obtain what we need. If we fail, we will have to pay the corresponding price. Whether it's the information about the infinite world, the infinite void, the secret technique to break through to immortal origin, or even the method to obtain the title of immortal origin, the secret technique to pass the angel's decay 5, or the immortal realm, etc. I believe these are all things you need. Hearing this, Hongjun couldn't help but be tempted, especially the secret technique to pass the angel's decay 5 and reach the immortal realm. That was what he needed. What if you win? Of course, you'll have to pay the corresponding price. What price? Asked Hongjun. At the same time, there was a wave of mockery. People from the infinite voids, great forces will look up to the things of us natives. Treasures, providence, merit, territory, etc. The divine poison marquis ignored Hongjun's mockery and said emotionlessly, "Let me think about this matter. I hope you won't cause any more trouble during this period of time, or else." Hearing this, Hongjun pondered for a while, but he couldn't make a decision. After saying that, he turned around and steered the purple cloud palace back to desolation. He needed to return and communicate with his true body, the Tao of the heavens, the essence will of the primordial world, and even the essence will of the chaos world. He needed to see if he should ask the will of the chaos world to intervene and settle the matter once and for all, or if he should compromise and fight for the greatest benefits. Phew! After Hongjun left, the divine poison marquis and the others heaved a sigh of relief. They hadn't been afraid of Hongjun earlier, and thanks to the protection of the equalization Great Tao, their lives weren't in danger. However, they'd still been under a lot of pressure, especially after enjoying abundant resources and rapidly improving their cultivation. They were even more afraid that Hongjun would get hot-headed and start a life-and-death struggle. As such, they could only spread the news. Even if they received a reward, how could it compare to developing the primal chaos themselves? Fortunately, Hongjun was still rational and didn't act rashly. I wonder what decision he'll make in the end. I think it's a wise decision. After all, if he fights to the death with us, we might be fine, but they'll be enslaved. If he can get even the slightest benefit from cooperating with us, it'll be a great help to him when he breaks through to the immortal realm. Get even the slightest benefit? We'll have to see if they have any peerless geniuses. Enough. We can't place all our hopes on someone else. Let's think about what happens if he refuses to cooperate with us, and instead connects with the prime will of the chaos world to seal the area and destroy the Guardian. How are we supposed to protect ourselves and spread the news of this? Makes sense. Chapter 1176. The divine poison marquis and the others couldn't put all their eggs in the same basket, so they had to multitask and prepare for two contingencies. After Hongjun returned to the desolation, he secretly communicated with his main body, Hongjun Tiandao, and the world will. What should we choose? Hongjun's evil corpse told the world, everything that had happened during this operation. Hongjun's main body, Hongjun Tiandao, and the world will of the desolation were all silent. They found the divine poison marquis and the others difficult to deal with because they were protected by the Great Path, but they were also shocked by the information the divine poison marquis had leaked about the multiverse. Although he had received some information from the origin will, he hadn't been able to describe it clearly. In order to deal a blow to Hongjun, the divine poison marquis had told him a little about cultivation levels, experts, powerhouses, great factions, and great worlds. This was an opportunity, but also a calamity. Personally, Hongjun wanted to ask the origin will of the primal chaos world to make the divine poison marquis and the others stay once and for all. He also wanted to seal off the world to avoid inviting trouble. Only then could he be the master of desolation and become the future master of the primal chaos. If there were external forces, especially after the brief conversation with the poison god marquis and the others, Hongjun realized just how vast the boundless void and the myriad heavens and myriad worlds were. Any random expert could cause the entire world to sink. At that time, not only would his glorious future come to an abrupt end, if he encountered someone with a bad temperament, it was not impossible for him to be enslaved and completely perish. Therefore, Hong Jun yearned for the outside world that the divine poison marquis had mentioned. However, because he hadn't made sufficient preparations, he rejected it and didn't want to come into contact with the outside world so early. That was because in untainted land and chaos, his words were final, and he held great power. However, in the Hollow, in terms of status, he was probably far inferior to Zenuanzi and the others in untainted land. After all, in the void, primordials roamed everywhere. Only the undying could barely protect themselves. Only by becoming the unrestrained God King could one become a giant. It was a pity that the origin will of chaos had gone completely silent the last time it sent a voice transmission to remind it that there were foreign visitors. The origin will of Hong Jun Tiandao, and even the world of desolation communicated with it many times, but there was no response at all. Furthermore, even if there was a response, Hong Jun couldn't guarantee that the will of the chaotic realm would act according to its wishes. Therefore, this path was probably a big question mark. In truth, it wasn't that the prime will of the chaos world was intentionally ignoring them. It was because after Pangu's Genesis tribulation, the primal chaos world had not only lost 3,000 demon gods, but it also lost a significant amount of resources. Even the essence of the primal chaos world had been seriously injured and had been in hibernation this entire time. Previously, if it hadn't been alarmed by the aura of the foreign visitors from the divine poison marquis and the others, the origin will of chaos wouldn't have awakened. As for Hong Jun and the others, who had failed to communicate with the origin will of chaos, they knew that if they couldn't strike with lightning speed, they could only feign civility with the divine poison marquis and the others. If that was the case, they would have to face another problem: arena battles. If they wanted to reap benefits, they would have to enter the arena and ensure victory. Only then would they be able to gain benefits through battles. If they kept failing, the situation wouldn't be good. If they allowed the divine poison marquis and the others to win consecutively, they would obtain the resources of desolation and the primal chaos world. Their cultivation would improve, and in the future, they would be like another blood sea. It could even be said that without the timeless arc, they would be even stronger than blood sea. I think we should agree to their conditions and compete with them in the arena. After pondering for a long time and weighing the pros and cons, Hongjun's true body spoke up. We don't know how the origin will of chaos is. Moreover, even if it's willing to seal the world, the divine poison marquis and the others don't seem to be afraid. I'm afraid they aren't so sure. Pausing for a while, Hongjun continued. If we let the news leak out and attract the experts at the immortal realm, the desolation and even the primal chaos will collapse and be enslaved. But I've observed the divine poison marquis and the others. They are all peerless experts in the same realm. We don't have a chance to win. Hongjun's evil corpse said anxiously. That was why he was hesitant, and the divine poison marquis and the others were confident. You're wrong. Hongjun shook his head. Perhaps they're not bad, but we shouldn't belittle ourselves. We shouldn't underestimate ourselves. Although we know very little about the multiverse and the boundless void, we can guess that these geniuses all came from different parts of the chaos world. If that's the case, the gap between us and them isn't that big. If we train them well, we might have a chance to win. Anyway, if the divine poison marquis and the others were that strong, they wouldn't covet the resources of a broken primal chaos. Moreover, then, Hongjun paused for a while. We don't need to worry about the others. At least, if those three join us, we will definitely win. Although Hongjun didn't say who they were, Hong Jun Tiandao, the origin will of desolation, and the evil corpse knew it. They knew he was talking about the Blood Sea Fong Qingshan, Mosquito Daorun, and the Eastern Sea Yongmei. If we can't do it, we can ask them to join us. I think if we pay a certain price and we win, they will be more than happy to help us. Of course, we shouldn't try this unless it's absolutely necessary. After all, even though there will be setbacks, opportunities are more important. If they get more opportunities, it will be even more difficult to deal with them. Therefore, the most important thing now is to pick out a batch of people and train them. Then, we will pick out the cream of the crop and compete with the divine poison marquis and the others in the arena. All right, all right, all right. The other three thought about it. Knowing that Hong Jun was making the most appropriate decision for the time being, they didn't have any objections. However, there's another important thing we need to do. We can't place all our hopes on them. Suddenly, Hong Jun's evil corpse spoke. Hong Jun Tiandao, and the origin will of the world looked over. Even though they said they wouldn't spread the news, if they lose too much or gain too little, they might take the risk. Hearing this, the three from Hong Jun's heart skipped a beat. They almost forgot about this. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble the Taoists to make another trip and make an oath with them to restrict them. Hong Jun bowed to the evil corpse. You and I are one. No need for such formalities. As he spoke, Hong Jun's evil corpse once again steered the Purple Cloud Palace towards the gathering point of the divine Poison Marquis and the others. Chapter 1177. In the name of the great Tao, I, Poison Marquis / Madame Baiwa, swear that as long as the Pan-Gu chaotic world doesn't deliberately target me, I will not leak any information about the chaotic world of Pan-Gu chaotic world to the multiverse. Those who violate this oath will be destroyed. In the name of the great Tao, I, Hong Jun, swear that as long as the Poison Marquis / Madame Baiwa doesn't leak any information to the multiverse or destroy the primordial desolation world, I will not plot against you. Those who violate this oath will be destroyed. The operation at the stronghold of the Poison Marquis group went very smoothly. Everyone discussed and sought common ground while reserving their differences for a win-win situation. The evil corpse of Hong Jun, the Poison Marquis, and the others all swore a great Tao oath. From now on, the Poison Marquis group was considered half a member of the Pan-Gu chaotic world. They could roam freely in the primordial desolation world and not be targeted. Of course, how much each side would benefit would depend on a fair and balanced arena. Both sides sent 10 people below Primordial Chaos Realm, 6 early Primordial Chaos Realm, and 3 mid-Primordial Chaos Realm. If the Pan-Gu chaotic world won, the Poison Marquis and the others would have to tell Hong Jun everything about the multiverse. They would also have to tell Hong Jun all the secret techniques they knew to break through to Primordial Chaos Realm, cultivation methods after Primordial Chaos Realm, methods to avoid attacks, methods to break through Deva's Decay, and methods to break through to Immortal Realm. If the Poison Marquis and the others won, Hong Jun would have to pay with Chaos Spirit Treasures, Khanate Cardinal Treasures, the Great Tao, and Hong Jun Tiandao's Providence. Although the Poison Marquis and the others came from the multiverse and the boundless void, the spirit treasures they used were mostly man-made. Even the Poison Marquis, who had the title of Primordial Chaos Realm, only had one Khanate Cardinal Treasure. The main reason for this was that innate spiritual treasures, supreme treasures, and even chaos spiritual treasures were hard to come by, especially high-grade and powerful spiritual treasures. Basically, the moment these spiritual treasures appeared in the world, they would be divided among the major forces. There was no need to talk about the infinite void. Just look at the Purple Cloud Palace and the desolation. For the sake of corpse severing and Khanate items, there was a huge uproar. After the ancient age, even the disciples of the sages, other than the direct disciples and personal disciples, there were some who used Khanate numinous treasures. Therefore, in terms of numinous treasures, the divine Poison Marquis and the others were probably not as good as Xinyuanzi and the others. Of course, this did not mean that innate was better than acquired. However, Khanate treasures contained a trace of the world's essence and the power of laws, which could assist one's cultivation. Furthermore, there was more room for improvement than postnatal treasures. Although the power of the artifact refined was great, it was easy for it to not keep up with the pace. Once the host's cultivation level increased, the power of the artifact might not be able to keep up. If one wanted to improve the quality of the artifact, one would need specialized refining methods. The refiner would also need better equipment, and there was no guarantee of a 100% success rate. Khanate treasures, on the other hand, did not need to be so troublesome. As long as the spiritual treasure was compatible with the host's great path, it could be subtly and naturally transformed through continuous refinement of the nomological great path. The difficulty of upgrading was only 1/10 of that of an acquired spiritual treasure. Just as the Hongjun evil corpse, the divine poison marquis, and the others made their oaths, the Hongjun main body and the Hongjun Tiandao world's origin will begin to plan how to select talents, how to train them, and how to deal with the divine poison marquis and the others. Even if they failed, they would only have to pay with some spiritual treasures and luck. It would not be a serious loss. However, for Hongjun, the divine poison marquis and the others were thinking about how to evade, break through the angel's decay 5, and break through to the immortal realm. If he could not obtain it through a fair arena, it would not be easy to trade for it in the future. Even if the divine poison marquis and the others were willing to trade, the price he would have to pay would definitely be far beyond what he could bear. As for going to the boundless void through the way the divine poison marquis and the others had come, Hongjun did not even think about it. Even if there were no mishaps in the boundless void, it would not be easy to obtain the immortal secret technique. This kind of thing was basically a top secret in the myriad heavens and realms. Only the great powers could possess it. Didn't you see that Fang Qingshan's timeless arc was also connected to a part of the world? However, even the immortal origin realm's cultivation method was rarely obtained. As for joining these great powers, not to mention how much time it would take to exchange for such a secret technique, more importantly, Hongjun was worried that once he was exposed in front of the strong, his background would be exposed. If that happened, it would be troublesome and dangerous for them to track him down. Therefore, the most appropriate way was to trade with the divine poison marquis and the others through a fair arena. No one in the entire desolation knew about all this. Even Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei were no exception. Both of them were now preparing for the last thing. In addition to preparing as much as possible for Azura and the Bloodsea clan, Fang Qingshan was preparing for the reincarnation of the Black Tortoise and proving his way to the Renhuang realm. As for Yang Mei, ever since he received the source of eternal blessings from Fang Qingshan, no one knew what he had learned from it. They had not contacted each other for a long time. However, when Mosquito Dowrin was looking for the pure white lotus, he passed by Yang Mei's residence and found that Yang Mei's condition was much better. Obviously, he had benefited a lot from it. As for the others, at this moment, they were all focused on the battle between Xianyuan and Qiyu. This battle was not only between Xianyuan and Qiyu, but also between the Wu people and the Clan of Enlightenment. It had even escalated to the confrontation between the Xianmen, Hongjun Tiandao, the Bloodsea, and Yang Mei. Now, the human clan was in a tripartite situation, with 2 strong and 1 weak. Xianyuan and Qiyu were somewhat neck and neck. Qiyu even had a slight advantage. After all, the people of the Juli tribe had the blood of the Wu people in their bodies. They were natural warriors. In addition, there was the great formation of 99 mystical Yin, which was simplified from the great formation of divine beings killing. Even though Xianyuan had used the refining method of the Xianmen Taoist soldiers and the Taoist soldier formation, he seemed to be slightly weaker in comparison. In the face of such a situation, he naturally needed external help. At this time, it was not the time for the decisive battle. Moreover, in the war of the human clan, it was better not to ask other immortals to help unless it was absolutely necessary. And if he could not ask the experts of the Xianmen Taoist soldiers to help, and could only secretly support them, Xianyuan would definitely be 1 step behind. Fortunately, now, Xianyuan was not fighting alone. In addition to him, there was also Shinnong's son. The current situation was somewhat similar to that of the 3 kingdoms, Chao Weiqiang and son Liuha. In order to win over Shinnong's son, Xianyuan specially went to the temple where the sages of the human clan were worshipped and prayed to see Shinnong. He poured out the current situation of the human clan and asked Shinnong to help him. He laid out the facts, reasoned with them, and most importantly, spoke from the standpoint of the human clan. Xianyuan had used all his means. In this regard, what else could Shinnong do? Since Xianyuan had put it this way, he had no choice but to follow his orders. Chapter 1178. From the very beginning, Shino knew that his son did not have the qualifications to fight for the throne. After he became the emperor, he was informed by the three ancestors of the human race and the heavenly emperor Fuxi. Therefore, for the sake of his son, he had to help Xian Yuan. After all, it was impossible for Shin Nong to become the emperor. He could only rely on Xian Yuan or Qiyu's side. If he didn't, Xian Yuan and Qiyu would join hands to kill him before they even started fighting. After all, they didn't want to benefit from the fight between the sandpiper and the clam. In comparison, although Xian Yuan had the support of the Xianmen, he was a human. On the other hand, not only was Qiyu's bloodline impure, but he was also different from Fuxi. After Fuxi proved his Tao, there would no longer be Fuxi of the demon clan, only Fuxi of the human clan. Qiyu, on the other hand, was in the Chao camp, but his heart was in the Han camp. He placed all his attention on the Wu clan, wanting to borrow the chicken to lay the eggs. At this time, whether it was for the sake of the human race or his son, Shino only had one choice. Therefore, after thinking about it, Shino nodded and gave Xian Yuan a token to contact his son. Others might not know about Xian Yuan and Shin Nong's little tricks, but they couldn't hide it from Fuxi. However, he chose to turn a blind eye to this. He had stood on Qiyu's side and supported him because they were from the same sect. After all, he and Qiyu had an old grudge. Unless the Shura sovereign spoke, or it was a decisive moment, Fuxi would not help Qiyu. If Qiyu couldn't even deal with Shino's interference, then there was no need for him to fight for the emperor's position. As for Shin Nong's son, as time went by, he saw Xian Yuan and Qiyu widening the gap between them. The gap was getting bigger and bigger. As for his guests, other than snatching resources and luck as much as possible, none of them had the mentality of working hard for the development of their forces. They all had the mentality of making a profit and leaving. In his heart, he finally understood that he did not have this kind of opportunity. If there was a virtuous cycle, there would naturally be a vicious one. The son of Shun Nong didn't have the power and reputation to subdue everyone. His subordinates all had their own ideas. As the gap between Xian Yuan and Qiyu grew wider and wider, the already weak unity became even more scattered. If it weren't for the fact that they still needed to use the identity of the son of Shun Nong to gain benefits, they would have scattered long ago. Under such circumstances, Xian Yuan brought Shino's token to join the alliance. It didn't take long for Shino's son to agree. Of course, although the son of Shin Nong knew that it was almost impossible for him to fight for the throne, he couldn't just submit to Xian Yuan in order to gain more benefits. Therefore, the first thing to do was to form an alliance. The son of Shin Nong and Xian Yuan joined forces, instantly increasing their power. Their momentum suddenly overwhelmed Qiyu. In this regard, Qiyu inherited the personality of the Wu people. Without hesitation, he directly launched an attack. Of course, it wasn't just because of their personalities. After all, if he allowed the two forces to completely merge, the pressure on him would be even greater. He might as well take advantage of the fact that they had just merged and attack when they least expected it and cut off one of their arms first. He who strikes first gains the upper hand. Just when the son of Shin Nong and Xian Yuan made a blood oath on Shouyang Mountain, Qiyu took the opportunity to launch an attack. He swept through the territory of the son of Shin Nong at lightning speed. In order to prevent Xian Yuan from responding, Qiyu didn't send out all his forces. Moreover, he didn't need to go all out to deal with the son of Shin Nong, who was in a state of disunity. After all, compared with the chaotic subordinates of the son of Shin Nong, Qiyu was managing the Zhuli tribe strictly according to the training method of the Wu people. Over the years, with the support of the Wu people, Qiyu had trained millions of soldiers in the Zhuli tribe. As the saying goes, soldiers are trained for 1,000 days. This time, in order to take down the son of Shin Nong and cut off one of Xuan Yuan's arms, Qiyu directly sent out 300,000 soldiers. The 300,000 soldiers of the Zhuli tribe not only had the Hongjun Tiandao body of the human race, but also had the blood of the Wu people, which made them unparalleled in body refining. Moreover, they had abundant resources to support them. Under Qiyu's training, In just a few decades, the cultivation of these people had actually reached the level of celestial immortals. The slightly more powerful ones had become true immortals, and the more powerful ones, such as the Kiliarchs, had reached the level of Shin immortals, and the Kiliarchs had directly reached the level of golden immortals. Although they were not as good as the warriors of the ancient Wu and Yao tribes, or the soldiers of the ancient dragon and phoenix tribes, they were already commendable. They perfectly illustrated the saying that celestial immortals were not as good as dogs, and golden immortals were everywhere. The human race was indeed blessed by luck. In just a few decades, even with the support of the resources of the Wu people, it was still shocking to everyone that they could reach such a level. Whether it was Xian Yuan or the son of Shenong, they did not expect Qiyu to send troops at this time. All is fair in war. What was even more unexpected was that Qiyu's soldiers were so powerful. It should be noted that this was no longer the ancient times, let alone the ancient times. Now that they had entered the era of the human race's sages, most of those who walked the world were disciples of the sages, and the most powerful direct disciples were only zenith heaven cultivators. Golden immortals could already be regarded as masters and could be included in the ranks of the inner sect disciples. Compared to Xuanyuan's subordinates, although he had the support of the Chan sect and even the Xianmen, and trained no less than 1,000,000 soldiers, the overall level of strength was a level lower than Qiyu's. There were two reasons for this. The first was the problem of the source of soldiers. The people of the Juli tribe were born warriors, combining the advantages of the human race and the Wu race, coupled with the blessing of the human race and the supply of resources from the Wu people. As the saying goes, when the time comes, heaven and earth work together. The cultivation of these Juli warriors naturally improved rapidly. The second was the problem of resources. Qiyu had the Wu people behind him, and Xian Yuan had the Chan sect and the Xianmen behind him. Not to mention the Chan sect, the foundation of the Xianmen was not as good as the Wu people. After all, the Wu people not only inherited the legacy of Pangu, but more importantly, they were once the overlords of the world, sweeping across the entire Desolation continent. The so-called demons controlled the sky, while the Wu people controlled the land. Although the Xianmen came from Hongjun, the real strength was in Sanqing, and the Sanqing Xianmen only started to rise after the Lich demon. More importantly, the Wu people could support Qiyu, but the Chan sect and the Xianmen obviously could not support Xian Yuan without reservation. In fact, this was the difference between a race and a sect. Compared to a sect, because of the bloodline, the unity of a race was much stronger and the centralization of power was more obvious. However, it was different in a sect. Even if they were fellow disciples of the same sect, the competition for benefits will be far more intense than the competition between the same race. Even a powerful sect leader would not be able to control the hearts of the people, especially if the sect leader was a bit biased and could not be impartial. The most famous example was naturally the Battle of God Investiture. The Chan sect, which should have been the winner, lost face. Chapter 1179. The Battle of God's Investiture was originally an internal battle between the three sections. But in the end, it developed into a cataclysm that swept the world. Originally, thousands of immortals from the Jie school came to the court. When the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. As the person in charge of the list of gods, the Chan school should get the greatest benefits. However, not only did they lose their reputation, but they also joined forces with outsiders to deal with their brothers. Their friendship with Sanqing was severed. More importantly, the deputy sect master of the Chan school, C.I. Heng, Johnson, Munju Shri, and Samantabhadra, the 12 golden immortals, broke out of the sect and became Buddhists. And all of this could be traced back to Zhao Gongming's death. Yin Xiao went out of the mountain to take revenge. The 12 golden immortals of the Chan school suffered a calamity. She used the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation and the primordial Chaos Golden Dipper to eliminate the 3 flowers on their heads, the 5 Qi in their chests, and 10,000 years of hard work. In order to restore their cultivation, the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning asked Laozi for the 9, turns golden elixir. It was unknown whether the heavenly lord of primordial beginning had long expected that C.I. Hang and the others would betray him, or whether he did it on purpose, or whether the 9 turns golden elixir was really not enough. No matter what the reason was, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning gave the only 9 turns golden elixir to his favorite Guangchengzi and the others. He did not worry about scarcity, but about inequality. It was precisely because of this that it became the last straw that crushed C.I. Hang and the others to break out of the sect and become Buddhists. Why was it the last straw? It was because similar things had happened in the past. For example, the heaven-flipping seal, a postnatal treasure, was given to Guangchengzi, and Guangchengzi was the master of the human emperor. However, Guangchengzi, who was favored by the heavenly lord of primordial beginning and had resources, was not able to really stand out and suppress the heroes, and make C.I. Hang and the others sincerely convinced. One could tell the whole picture by looking at one spot. The sect had already fallen into such a mess because of the uneven distribution of benefits. How could they fully support a third-generation disciple, who was not even the disciple himself? Not to mention these, let's talk about the 300,000 troops under Qi Yu's command and launching a lightning war on the territory of the son of Shinnong. The subordinates of the son of Shinnong didn't have time to react and were caught unprepared. Moreover, they were in a state of disunity and had no cohesion. It was okay to fight a favorable battle, but once they encountered something that they couldn't defeat, their first thought was to protect themselves instead of fighting recklessly. After all, those who joined the forces of the son of Shinnong were just doing it for luck and resources to improve their cultivation. They wouldn't have the idea of dying for their bosom friends or serving their country. Of course, the most important thing was the strength of Chiyo's 300,000 soldiers. Even the weakest among them were heaven immortals, and the strongest were primordial experts who had surpassed gold immortals. The Jili tribe that Qi Yu was born in was actually not a tribe. Rather, it could be said that it was only the most powerful tribe among these tribes. There were also 81 smaller forces attached to him. The leaders of these 81 minor powers were all primordial immortals. In the original trajectory, they were Qi Yu's 81 brothers. Although it was impossible for them to call each other brothers, they were still the strongest backing. With primordial immortals as the leaders, gold immortals as the generals, and heaven immortals as the soldiers, they even had the simplified version of the 9 mystical formation. Not to mention the strength of the son of Shinnong's subordinates. Even Xuanyuan's strength would not fare much better if he was caught off guard. For a moment, wherever the army went, it was invincible and collapsed. The son of Shinnong also had an army of nearly 1 million soldiers. Although they were not as elite as Chiyo's Jili tribe, most of them were heaven immortals. However, when the soldiers were raging, the generals were raging in a nest. The experts at the top were not in the mood to fight, and the generals and soldiers at the bottom were also in the mood to kill the enemy, but they were powerless to reverse the situation. In just one day, the son of Shinnong lost 1/10 of his territory, and the soldiers under his command suffered heavy casualties. His army of 1 million soldiers was basically crippled. Damn it. When the son of Shinnong, who was forming an alliance with Xianyuan on Mount Shouyang, heard the news, he almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. Although he had long known that he was not as strong as Qi Yu and Xianyuan, he didn't expect the gap to be so huge. In just one day, his foundation was shaken. Of course, what made the son of Shinnong even more angry were those who fled before the battle started. Although he knew that they had ulterior motives, he didn't expect that they would not even do anything to save face. If these people had resisted for a while, even if the strength of his subordinates was not as strong as Qi Yu, they would not have been defeated so quickly. Alas, with a long sigh, the son of Shinnong had completely given up. Let's forget about the alliance. He turned his head and said to Xianyuan, who looked solemn, "It seems that I really have no fate with the position of the human emperor. Later, I will go to Mount Fengqi to find my father. From then on, I will devote myself to cultivation. I will leave the forces under my command to you. I hope it will be of some help to you." After that, the son of Shinnong left without waiting for Xianyuan to speak, feeling a little disheartened. At this moment, Xian Yuan didn't have much time to pay attention to him. After the son of Shinnong left, Xian Yuan immediately summoned his subordinates, ready to discuss a solution as soon as possible. I didn't expect the strength of Chiyo's subordinates to be so strong. I think we should retreat and avoid the sharp edge. No. If we let Chiyu completely defeat the other force, we will face the Jili army, which is at the peak of its strength. And now the force of the son of Shinnong is also ours. If we are defeated by Chiyu, the loss will be a little too great. Yes, that's right. I think we should immediately attack the Jili tribe, force Chiyu to retreat, and then take over the strength of the son of Shinnong, shrink, and digest it. Only in this way can we better face Chiyo's attack. The subordinates of Xian Yuan talked about all the possibilities one by one. Finally, they all looked at Xian Yuan, asking him to make a decision. What do you think, master? Xian Yuan didn't make a decision immediately. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Guang Chengzi. He knew that from the beginning, compared with Chiyu, he had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. It was impossible to turn the situation around by relying on his subordinates. Now it was up to Guang Chengzi, as well as the clan of enlightenment, the Xianmin, and the sage behind him. Moreover, when Fuxi and Shinnong proved the way, the Shura Emperor of the Blood Sea and the great master of Xiandu of the Ren School played an indispensable role. Otherwise, they wouldn't have received so many merits. Xian Yuan had always regarded Guang Chengzi as his guarantee for proving the way, so he carefully served him. Now that they were in a critical situation, Xian Yuan naturally regarded Guang Chengzi as his hope. In this regard, Guang Chengzi was also very helpless. At first, when he received his master's promise to become the teacher of the human sovereign, he was ecstatic. He imagined that he would become the second Shura Emperor and the second great master of Xiandu. Unfortunately, the gap between the ideal and the reality was too big. Most importantly, unlike teaching Fuxi and Shinnong, Xian Yuan was in charge of the army. Not only did he need to teach Xian Yuan cultivation, but he also needed to teach him how to govern and how to fight. He was a Taoist cultivator. Before teaching Xian Yuan, he consulted the great master Xiandu about how to govern the nation, let alone how to train the army and fight a war. Chapter 1180. It was different for Guang Chengzi to teach Xian Yuan, the Shura Emperor to teach Fuxi, and the great Taoist master Xiandu to teach Shinnong. The Shura Emperor had Fang Qingshan to guide him. Moreover, the most important thing for Fuxi was to comprehend the connate 8 trigrams through the river diagram of the Luo book. This was a piece of cake for the Blood Sea. As for Shinnong, the most important thing for him was to taste all kinds of herbs. Herbs were medicine, and medicine was elixir. The Ren School and Laozi happened to be best at alchemy. However, Xian Yuan was different. He focused on killing, raising troops, and completely unifying the human race. Therefore, there were many things that he needed to know. Fortunately, with the help of the great Taoist master Xiandu and the heavenly lord of primordial beginning, coupled with Xuan Yuan's extraordinary talent, Guang Chengzi did not encounter any problems. If it was on the original track, everything would naturally be daunting and there would not be any twists and turns. However, it was different now. Other than training troops, marching troops to war, and governing the country, the more important thing was that the level was different. The battle between Xian Yuan and Chiyu was beyond their control. This battle had even exceeded the boundaries of the human race, not to mention them. It was just like the battle of God's investiture, which was just an immortal battle in the name of the human race. This battle was the battle between the celestial sect and the Wu people after the great sorcerer and demon war. Back then, the demon slaughter was a test for the human race. The human race survived. After the sorcerer and demon race were defeated, a part of the luck of the demon race was transferred to the human race along with Fuxi. Now, in the battle between the human race and the sorcerer and demon race, only by defeating Chiyu could the human race enjoy the undivided luck of the sorcerer and demon race, as well as their destiny. Only then could they become the main characters of the world. Other than the first time, this was also the battle between Sanqing, Jin, Zhuanti, Niwa, and the Wu people, Hutu, and even the Blood Sea, Fong Qingshan, and Mosquito Daoren. Although Guang Chengzi did not have confidence in himself, he obviously could not show it. Moreover, if he could not, there was still his teacher. The key was that this matter was not something that he could solve. Moreover, the heavenly lord of primordial beginning had already reminded him to go to the Jade Void Palace if there was anything that he could not solve or if it was at a critical juncture. Therefore, Guang Qingzi appeared very calm. The other party has the advantage in numbers. When I go to the Hollow Jade Palace to consult the sect master, I will definitely be able to find a safe way. When the time comes, there will be no mistakes in dealing with Qiyu. Of course, Xin Yuan knew that Guang Chengzi alone could not defeat Qiyu. The clan of enlightenment, the Xianmen, and the sages had always given him confidence. Xin Yuan had been waiting for Xuan Yuan's words. Hearing this, he was overjoyed and said, "Thank you for your help, Master. I am very grateful." Although Guang Chengzi went to ask for help, Xin Yuan knew that he couldn't put all his eggs in one basket. He couldn't place all his hopes on others. Moreover, one had to be strong to forge iron. Although he was at a disadvantage against Qiyu, he was not much weaker than Qiyu in terms of the strength of the human race. At the very least, he could maintain a stalemate. Moreover, he had to save the son of Shinnong's forces and clansmen. Firstly, it was his force now. After all, the son of Shinnong had promised to hand it over to him. If he could completely integrate that part of the force, his chances of defeating Qiyu would increase. Secondly, it was righteousness. Not to mention other things, just in name, he and the son of Shinnong were allies. Although the son of Shinnong had given up, he had to show his support. Therefore, Xin Yuan sent his troops. He didn't besiege Wei to rescue the besieged. He knew that Qiyu would definitely be prepared. Therefore, he directly sent his troops to the territory of the son of Shinnong, and he went all out. Qiyu had calculated everything, but he didn't expect that Xin Yuan would play such a trick on him. He was also caught unprepared. In the end, the irresistible attack came to an abrupt halt. In order to prevent Xin Yuan from taking advantage of the situation to devour this force, the 300,000 troops immediately defended on the spot, while the 700,000 troops at the back immediately set off. For a moment, the flames of war rose everywhere, and the decisive battle was about to begin. After Guang Chengzi left the Yoxiong tribe, he flew straight to the Kunlun mountain on a cloud. In a short while, he arrived in front of the Jade Palace of the Kunlun mountain. The honored lord of the origin valued his reputation the most. Even though Guang Chengzi was the most favored disciple, he didn't dare to be disrespectful. He asked the White Crane Boy to go in and inform him. After a while, the White Crane Boy came out and said that the honored lord of the origin had asked Guang Chengzi to enter the hall. Guang Chengzi entered the hall, and after paying respects to the honored lord of the origin, he reported to the honored lord of the origin about the Juli tribe and Qiyu. The honored lord of the origin was already prepared for this. First, he asked Guang Chengzi to ring the golden bell to summon his fellow disciples and ask them to help him. But at the same time, he also knew that it was impossible for him to deal with Qiyu alone. After all, he had the support of the Wu people. Although the great sorcerer and demon war had caused great losses to the Wu people, the remaining great sorcerers were all above the sage-to-be. And now, apart from the great master Xiandu, who had broken through to the sage-to-be realm with the help of the merits of the human sovereign's teacher, even Dipong, who had sought refuge with his teacher, was still at the peak of the Zenith Heaven realm. Moreover, Qiyu was not only supported by the Wu people, but also the Blood Sea Azura tribe. Qiyu's teacher was also the teacher of Fuxi, who had the strength of the late sage-to-be. Fortunately, before reaching the origin, the strength of one's combat capability was not only dependent on one's realm, but also on magic treasures, divine sense, formations, and elixirs. Divine sense was useless, but magic treasures, formations, and elixirs were Sanqing's forte. After all, Laozi was good at concocting elixirs, the honored lord of the origin was good at refining weapons, and Tong Tian was good at formations. Therefore, In order to ensure that Guang Chengzi and the others did not fall into a disadvantageous position when facing the Wu people, Laozi gave them all kinds of elixirs. Some were to increase combat capability, some were to heal wounds, some were to defend, and some were to restore Dharma power. As for Tongtian, he gave them all kinds of exquisite formations, such as the 10 ultimate formations, the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation, and so on. At the same time, they gave them all kinds of precious treasures of the three religions, such as the mysterious Yellow Pagoda of Heaven and Earth, the Taiji diagram, the Pangu banner, the 4 fairy-slaying swords, and so on. At the same time, to ensure that nothing went wrong, Laozi and the others personally invited some old friends of the Purple Cloud Palace, such as Kuanpeng, the remaining 10 great demon saints of the demon clan, Xinyuanzi, Hongyun, and so on. For a while, Zhilu, which was also the place where the armies of Xin Yuan and Shi Yu faced off, became more and more solemn as the two sides invited more and more experts. After Xin Yuan came out in full force, Qi Yu knew that the final battle was imminent. He immediately sent a signal for help to the Pangu Palace of the Wu people. For a moment, the entire Wu people did not even care about consolidating their territory in the North Continent. More than 10 great wizards came to help Qi Yu. Originally, they did not care about the Celestial sect. After all, apart from the great Taoist Master Xiandu, there were only a few peak Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals in the Celestial sect. In this regard, the great wizards were naturally dismissive. However, soon after, their expressions began to change. This was because, apart from the disciples of the saints of the three religions, their old enemies, the experts of the demon clan, Kuanpeng, Shangyang, Bai Zhe, and the others were also here. In addition, Xinyuanzi and Hongyun were also here. Seeing this scene, the expressions of Xing Tian and the others immediately changed. Chapter 1181. The Wu people fought against the heavens and the earth and were not afraid of anything. Back then, before they saw the power of the mixed Yuan sage, and after they obtained the great divine being's killing formation, they even dared to challenge Hongjun. Even so, this did not mean that they did not know their own limits. In the war between the sorcerer and demon tribes, the sorcerer and demon tribes suffered heavy losses. However, those who had survived the great calamity had actually benefited greatly. Kuanpeng broke through from the late stage of quasi-sage to the peak of quasi-sage. Shangyang, Bai Zhe, and the others also killed 2 corpses. Xing Tian, Xiang Lu, Jiufeng, Yushi, Count of Wind, and the others also broke through to the cultivation of quasi-sage. Their combat power was no weaker than a quasi-sage who killed 2 corpses. To be honest, few in the world could match this power. But while they were strong, Zhen Yuanzi, Hongyun, Kuanpeng, and the others were stronger. Moreover, they were not only strong in their cultivation realms. Mystiques, cultivation techniques, and spiritual treasures were all top-notch. On their side, besides Shura Sovereign, almost no one could compete with them. As for Xing Tian, if he fought to the death, he could threaten Kuanpeng and the others. After all, in the original trajectory, because the Wu people rebelled against the heavenly court, Xing Tian fought with Haoyan. Although he was beheaded, it was a blessing in disguise. With his nipples as his eyes, his navel as his mouth, and his penis as his dance, he escaped unscathed. As for Qi Yu, if he had not reincarnated, he might have been stronger than Xing Tian. After all, back then, Qi Yu, Xing Tian, and Ho Yi were known as the 3 heroes of the Wu people. They were evenly matched, especially after Qi Yu purified the North Continent. He was blessed with karma and fate. If he had not reincarnated, it would not have been difficult for him to break through to the late stage of quasi-sage. Putting all this aside, because of the arrival of Zhen Yuanzi and the others, the Wu people were at a disadvantage. Qi Yu and the others naturally had extremely unsightly expressions when they saw this scene. They did not expect Laozi and the others to be so ruthless. They actually invited Hongyun, Queen Mother of the West, and the others. Actually, the reason for this, besides wanting to settle things once and for all, was because they wanted to guard against Chi Yu's Du Tian Divine Being's banner. After all, it was a peerless formation that could be used to set up the Great Divine Fiend formation and summon Pan Gu's true body. Even if the person who set up the formation was not the 12 Zhu Wu, there was Chi Yu and the 12 Meridian's great sorcerer. Even if it was not as good as the original, it was probably invincible below the sage level. Kuan-peng, Zenyuanzi, Ongyun, do you want to be enemies with the Wu people? Chi Yu shouted loudly. I have to come on the orders of Her Highness Niwa. Kuan-peng said calmly. Of course, besides this reason, there was another reason. The Shura sovereign had stolen the book of Luo and river diagram from his hands all those years ago. Even though the Shura sovereign had given him the 9 heavens astral wind whip that was more suitable for him, he was still unhappy about it. If he didn't have a chance, then so be it. But now that such a great opportunity had presented itself, how could the vengeful Kuan-peng let it go? Since the saint has personally invited us, it's hard for us to refuse. Zenyuanzi and Hongyun looked at each other and smiled bitterly. After all, they were also from the celestial sect. Since Sanqing had personally invited them, how could they not give him face? Hearing this, Chi Yu could only snort coldly. No matter what their purpose was, since they had appeared here, they were enemies with the Wu people. After today, they would learn that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Back when the liches and demons were at their peak, even the saints had to retreat. Now, even Zenyuanzi and the others dared to offend them for the saints. Indeed, a fallen phoenix was inferior to a chicken. Chi Yu secretly made a note of Kuan-peng and the others. On the surface, apart from looking a little ugly, Chi Yu did not panic. Although it seemed like they were at a disadvantage now, they still had a trump card. That was the Du Tian Divine Killing Banner that had been repaired to purify the North Continent. With this treasure, they could join forces with the other 11 great sorcerers present today to set up the Du Tian Divine Killing Banner, the most powerful array of the Wu people, and summon the true body of Pan Gu. If the saints did not appear, these people in front of them would definitely not be able to break the array, even if they had the immortal slaying sword array. After all, although the array was sharp and not weaker than the Du Tian Divine Killing Banner, it still depended on who was using it. Many Treasures was just a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Even if he had the secret help of Tong Tian, what could he do? If he dared to be brazen, Hotazu would teach him how to be a person. Just when it was about to happen, there was a sudden change in heaven and earth. Buzz. In the chaotic space, a thunderous explosion resounded, and it was like the awakening of hives, causing everyone's ears to ring. In an instant, a speck of light blossomed, and then it was like a volcano erupting. Boundless specks of light shot out and suffused the surroundings. Such a light was like the eruption of the sun. In an instant, the dazzling light made the saints close their eyes subconsciously. The others only felt that there was a bright light in front of them, and they could not see clearly. They temporarily lost their vision. For a moment, the 9 heavens and 10 earths, as well as the 3 realms and 6 paths, were all shaken. Not long after, a supreme and noble ancient palace suddenly materialized from illusion. Rays of mysterious light intertwined and intertwined, developing an indescribable Tao rhythm. When people saw it, they could not help but want to immerse themselves in it. An ancient aura filled the air. In the surroundings, there were traces of aura that could suppress heaven and earth. It was as if there were 3,000 great Tao standing there. Dragons and phoenixes danced, tigers and dragons roared. There were countless living beings, including heaven, earth, humans, gods, ghosts, Qilin, Yu, Kuan, Azura, Wu, and hundreds of millions of other races. All of them revealed their true forms. It was a scene of 100 vessels vying for the current, 1,000 sails competing, and all living beings competing for freedom. In the entire palace, there was only a dark golden door. It was closed. On the plaque above the door were 3 big words written with strong strokes. Purple Cloud Palace. This is the Purple Cloud Palace. What a great purple cloud palace. Just by looking at its aura, it has the ability to suppress the world. I'm afraid that even the three treasures of opening heaven are slightly inferior to it. Why did the purple cloud palace suddenly appear? Why did the purple cloud palace appear at this time? Could it be that Hongjun, Tiandao, and Daozu are finally going to war with Blood Sea and East Sea? Everyone was familiar with the purple cloud palace. After all, the great Tao originated from the purple cloud palace. After primordial times, apart from Blood Sea Fong Qingshan, Mosquito Daoren, and Isiang Mei, almost everyone was shrouded in the glory and majesty of Hongjun. Even the juniors who had never seen the Purple Cloud Palace before had heard of its legends. Back then, the Purple Cloud Palace had 3 lectures, divided the treasures, and Hongjun had integrated with the way. It would not appear unless it was during the Cataclysm. Apart from the previous Great Sorcerer and Demon War, when Hongjun had gathered 6 sages to discuss the Heavenly Court's Heavenly Emperor, the Purple Cloud Palace had not appeared in the world again. He didn't know why it suddenly appeared this time, and it caused such a huge commotion. Just as everyone was thinking about what was going on, 1,000 thoughts flashed through their minds. There were changes in the sky again. Buzz. There was an endless amount of spiritual qi. The 3,000 great Tao merged with each other, turning from illusion to reality, turning into a heavenly great Tao that descended from the 9 heavens. Yes, this was a heavenly great Tao. It was a heavenly stairway, a heavenly pillar, just like the Builder Tree and Mount Buzhou. It connected the heavens and the earth. One end was connected to the Purple Cloud Palace, while the other end descended into the land of desolation. Chapter 1182. Heavenly Road. Just like Mount Buzhou back then, not only was it connected to the heavens and the earth, but it also exuded a pressure that made one feel as if they were shouldering the heavens. This path was somewhat similar to a pyramid, and the higher one went, the narrower the path became. From the top of the Purple Cloud Palace as the starting point, the Great Path was gradually divided into 9 levels. The one closest to the top, which was the level in front of the Purple Cloud Palace, was the first level, which could accommodate 10 people standing. There were 10 futons that glowed with golden divine light. Further down, there were 20 positions with 20 futons. This was the second level. There were even more spots on the 3rd floor, a total of 40. As the number of spots increased, the number of spots on the 4th floor increased to 80, 160 on the 5th floor, 320 on the 6th floor, 640 on the 7th floor, 1,080 on the 8th floor, and the 9th floor had the most spots, a total of 2,160. Looking at the extremely bright light falling down, it exuded a shocking heavenly might and an incomparably heavy pressure. Everyone felt as if their hearts were being suppressed by the 5 mountains, and they could not breathe. The light dissipated, and they could truly see the entire heavenly road. Everyone's senses immediately underwent a drastic change. Compared to their palpitations, looking at the 9 different levels of steps, the most important thing was the futons on the steps. An indescribable shudder rose in everyone's hearts. This was because this scene was somewhat familiar, especially for those who had entered the Purple Cloud Palace before. The first thing that came to mind was the futon that represented the saint position. For a moment, everyone was a little excited, a little in disbelief, a little nervous, and a little confused. Naturally, they were excited because they thought of the futons that represented the saint position and the primordial violet chi. There were so many positions on these futons, and it was obvious that not all of them represented such an opportunity. However, the top 10 positions might not be impossible. Everyone below the saint level was an ant. Who wouldn't be excited to have a chance to become a saint? Even Sanqing and the others who had already broken through might not be unmoved, let alone those who had yet to become saints. What was unbelievable was that Daozu had said in Hongjun that if one wanted to become a saint, they could only rely on the foundation of the Great Path, the primordial violet chi. He only had 7 strands of primordial violet chi in his possession, and 6 had been given to his disciples. Sanqing and the others had all become saints. The last one was originally used to plot against Fang Qingshan, but he did not expect him to beat him at his own game and also break through to the primordial chaos realm. What they couldn't believe was whether the top 10 positions represented the sage positions or not. If so, where did the Hongmeng immortal chi come from? Could it be that Hong Jun had lied back then? Or a new one? What if it wasn't? This thought flashed through everyone's mind before it was thrown to the back of their minds. Naturally, he was anxious because he hoped that it was true, but he was also afraid that the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. On the other hand, he was puzzled as to why Hong Jun was doing this. Could it be that a great tribulation was about to occur? Moreover, it was a great tribulation that was even more severe than that of the dragons, phoenixes, and shamans and demons. At the thought of this, those who were still clear-headed immediately shuddered. At this moment, even Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei, who did not pay attention to outside affairs, were confused by Hong Juan's sudden move, not to mention the others. What the hell is he doing? Fang Qingshan frowned. Was he going to attack him? It did not seem like it. After all, the person who understood you the most was your enemy. If Hong Jun wanted to attack him, it would definitely be a surprise and a thunderous strike. It would definitely not be like this. However, if he did not attack him and Yang Mei, what else could the current desolation do that could make Hong Jun go to war? Fang Qingshan couldn't figure it out no matter how he thought about it, and he could only wait and see. Clang! Not long after, a bell rang. In an instant, everyone seemed to have returned to the time when the Purple Cloud Palace had started the lecture. For a moment, the old members of the Purple Cloud Palace could not help but feel emotional. The ancient sound of the bell instantly broke the chaos in the void, attracting everyone's attention. The closed door of the Purple Cloud Palace seemed to be pushed open by an invisible hand. A gap appeared, and an extremely dazzling light shone from the gap. It was bright, but not dazzling. It was as gentle as a gentleman's jade, giving people the comfort of a baby. Boundless Taoist rhymes filled everyone's eyes and affected everyone's emotions. It opened. Seeing the door of the Purple Cloud Palace open, everyone's heart skipped a beat. They even felt a little excited because they knew that they would soon find out what was going on. A figure that was not tall, but had a condensed aura slowly walked out from the door. A trace of surprise flashed in everyone's eyes, but they felt that it was only natural. This person was not Hong Jun, but a child. However, this child was obviously not Hao Ian or Jasper Pool. This was a child that Hong Jun had enlightened after Hao Ian's Jasper Pool left. Even so, this person's cultivation level was higher than Hao Ian's. This was because he was originally a chaotic beast. He had accidentally entered the chaos and the desolation and was tamed and enlightened by Hong Jun. Putting this aside, after this child walked out, he did not waste any time. He looked around and said loudly, "This is the path to heaven. There are a total of 9 steps on the path to heaven. Every step you climb on the path to heaven will allow you to obtain a corresponding benefit, be it cultivation techniques, magical powers, spiritual treasures, fate, merit, or anything else. There's nothing that you can't get. If anyone can reach the top and reach the door of the Purple Cloud Palace, the Patriarch will reward them handsomely. If they can complete the task, they might even have a chance to break through to the origin chaos. If you want to send the path to heaven or even reach the top, your essence, chi, spirit, magical powers, spiritual treasures, and cultivation techniques are all indispensable. You have to reach the pinnacle of all these. Only then can you stand out. Up in the sky, the boy's voice was calm, but it carried a profound meaning. However, it caused the pupils of everyone who was paying attention to this to shrink. At this moment, in the desolation, everyone understood the purpose of this path to heaven. They knew that this would be an opportunity that was comparable to the Purple Cloud Palace's lecture back then. It might even surpass it. After all, back then, the Purple Cloud Palace had only produced 6 sages. Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Daoren were just exceptions. Now, there were 10 positions at the top. However, they had overlooked 2 points. Firstly, The child had said that if they wanted to obtain the opportunity to break through to the origin chaos, it would only be possible after completing the task. Yes, it was not certain, but it was possible. Secondly, the child had said that if they wanted to reach the top, they had to be top-notch in all aspects and have no shortcomings. Actually, it was not that they did not hear it. It was just that the joy in their hearts had gained the upper hand. The first point was fine. However, many people were conceited about the second point. Their magical powers, cultivation techniques, foundations, and other aspects were all first-rate existences below the sages. Chapter 1183. Sage to be late stage, sage to be peak, and even supreme figures like Fushi and quasi-sages were all aiming for the top 10 positions. However, in addition to the top 10 positions, there were 8 other levels with at least 20 positions and at most more than 1,000 positions. Although these opportunities were not as good as those at the top, they were still very good. For others, especially those who were not disciples of sages, it was also a great opportunity, because the world now belonged to sages. Without the Purple Cloud Palace, there were still sacred beasts like the Azure Dragon and the Vermilion Bird and the Dragon and Phoenix, and supreme experts like Nuwa and Hutu in the Witch Demon realm. What about other races and others? Even the human clan, which was about to become the main character of the world, did not have an expert of the origin realm. It was difficult for them to break through to the sage to be, not to mention the origin realm. After all, in today's world, not only was the congenital spiritual chi turning into acquired spiritual chi, all kinds of treasures of heaven and earth were decreasing, and even the effect of ginseng fruit was not as good as it was at the beginning of the world. As for the aptitude of living creatures, it was also declining. Without inheritance, the possibility of becoming a giant was almost zero, unless one had the luck and merit of the journey to the West Four. However, even so, the journey to the West Four had their own inheritance. Tripitaka was a Buddhist, Monkey Sun was a disciple of a sage, Zhu Beiji was also a direct disciple of a sage, Monk Sha was backed by the Heavenly Court, and Little White Dragon was from the Dragon Clan. Therefore, opportunities were especially important, not only for individual cultivators, but also for disciples of sages. Didn't you see that apart from the great Master Xiandu, there was not even a person at the peak of sage to be in the celestial sect? The reason why the great Master Xiandu could break through was that Laozi had planned the opportunity of human emperor merit for him. Now, the opportunity on the path of heaven was given by Daozu. As long as one could reach the top, even if it was only the first level, he would definitely benefit a lot. For a moment, everyone's eyes began to collide, creating brilliant sparks. Their fighting spirits soared and swept the wind and clouds for billions of miles. Those at the peak of sage to be aimed at the top 10 positions, while the rest set their eyes on other positions. Of course, they also tried their best to climb to a higher level. It was not just the people below the primordial chaos. Even the saints, Fong Qing-shan, and even Yang Mei could not remain calm at that moment. However, unlike others who focused on breaking through to primordial chaos, everyone who had become Saint Primordial Chaos was focused on that mission. What kind of mission was it for Hong Jun to personally issue it and give such a big reward? What was it about breaking through to primordial chaos? All of this was too sudden, too unexpected, and it caused everyone to be unable to maintain their calm. The others did not even consider what sage primordial chaos was thinking. At this moment, Xinyuanzi and the others were panting heavily. Primordial chaos. Originally, they thought that they would never have the chance to break through in this lifetime. After all, they had been at the peak of quasi-sage realm for a long time. However, they didn't even touch the door of a mortal realm, let alone immortal realm. They didn't even break through to quasi-sage realm. Who would have thought that there would be no way out after the mountains and rivers were heavy and there would be light at the end of the tunnel? Once again, he heard the news of a breakthrough and a fortuitous encounter. Last time, the Purple Cloud Palace missed the sage position and the Hong Meng immortal chi. This time, although they felt a little regretful, they did not regret it. After all, They later learned that the sage position was destined by God. Didn't they see that Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Darren sat on it? But in the end, they did not get recognized and were almost schemed against by Daozu. However, this time, it seemed to be a little different. Even if Hong Jun had other plans, Zhen Yuanzi and the others were determined not to miss it again. At least they had to give it a try. After all, when they saw their peers standing high above them, they would not want to miss the opportunity of primordial chaos, whether it was for face, strength, or other reasons. Although they had made up their minds, Kunpeng, Hong Yun, and Zhen Yuanzi, the veteran experts at the peak of Sage Realm, had made up their minds to succeed or die trying. Today was supposed to be the decisive battle between Xian Yuan and Qi Yu for the position of human sovereign. But now, apart from Xian Yuan and Qi Yu, no one was paying attention to their movements. Even the Wu people and the human tribe were the same. This was an opportunity, a great opportunity. This was the opportunity to become a realm of primordial chaos. No cultivator would be willing to give it up. Fuxi was Nua's elder brother, Emperor Shi of the demon tribe. He had a high position and power. In order to recover his cultivation and advance further, he gave up everything and reincarnated as a human. He even gave up Fuxi of the demon tribe and became Fuxi of the human tribe, the ancient dragon tribe and the phoenix tribe. Rohong Jun represented the 5 elements, yin and yang, and the reversal of heaven and earth. He was an ancient witch demon. Di Jun, Tai, and the 12 Zhu Wu. Why did they fight to the death? Actually, it was for the great way. Knowing the way in the morning, one could die without regret. Now that there was an opportunity to become a realm of primordial chaos here, who would care about them? Even Xian Yuan and Qi Yu, especially Qi Yu, were tempted by this opportunity. But he still knew that compared to the opportunity on the path of heaven, the opportunity of human sovereign was more suitable for him. Moreover, as long as he won the position of human sovereign, he would be able to break through the peak of sage to be and fight for the opportunity on the path of heaven. It was not impossible. Not to mention Qi Yu and Xian Yuan, many masters came to the desolation today because of the Wu people and the Xian men. It was probably the most complete after the great war of sorcerers and demons. But there were still many people who did not show up. But with the appearance of the Purple Cloud Palace and the opportunity on the path of heaven, those who had some confidence in their strength came. Some were masters of the 10,000 tribes of the desolation. Some were masters of the dragon and phoenix tribes, the sorcerers and demons, and even masters of the vicious beast tribe, and existences like the great ancestors of the 5 elements of yin and yang also came. For a time, the hall was full of people. It was not inferior to the 3 masters of the Purple Cloud Palace, and even better. As more and more people came, the atmosphere became colder and colder. Except for people like Zhen Yuanzi and Hong Yun, Hao Yin, and the Queen Mother, they all looked at each other like swords, meeting each other in the void as if they collided again and again. Invisible sword chi spread in all directions, cold and murderous, making people feel cold all over. After all, there were only so many opportunities. One more person meant one could get less opportunities. If it were not for the fact that they were not sure of winning, if it were not for the fact that they might anger Hong Jun by fighting here, if it were not for the fact that they were afraid of getting hurt and affecting the climb, these people would have started fighting. After all, there were only 10 opportunities related to the origin, but the number of masters above the peak of Sage to Be was far more than the number of fingers on one hand. At this moment, even Zhen Yuanzi and Kunpeng could not guarantee that they could get the last 10 places. Sanqing, Zhuani, and even Fong Qingshan were a bit surprised. Chapter 1184. Everyone knew that the world of desolation was very complicated. As Hong Jun Tian Dao, even Hong Jun, who had merged with the Dao, couldn't control desolation completely. In order to weaken Pan Gu's influence, he had to resort to all sorts of schemes and plots. After all, it was Pan Gu who had created the world of desolation. Pan Gu was different from ordinary immortal realm experts. Even though he hadn't broken through to the immortal realm, His combat ability wasn't weaker than ordinary Immortal Realm experts. He might even be stronger than them. Even the Great Tao was wary of Pangu. He also had 3 chaotic supreme treasures: essence, chi, and spirit. His physique wasn't weaker than supreme treasures. His chi refinement and spirit refinement weren't weak either. The world of desolation created by such an expert was no small matter. Besides Pangu, there were also 3,000 demonic gods and more than half of the chaotic supreme treasures integrated into the desolation. However, even though they were mentally prepared, they didn't think that far ahead. They used to think that the experts below the saints and mixed essence were Xinyuanzi and the others from the Purple Cloud Palace. After all, they had gone through the great trial of beasts, the great trial of dragons and phoenixes, the battle between Taoists and demons, and the great trial of sorcerer and demon. Each time, many geniuses and experts had fallen. However, they didn't expect there to be so many peak sage-to-be experts. Many of them were even stronger than Xinyuanzi and the others. Moreover, they had never shown themselves before. This was simply amazing. More and more people came, and the atmosphere became more and more solemn. The opportunity was right in front of them, but everyone was observing. No one took action. The more experienced one was, the more timid one became. Everyone wanted to let the others test the waters first, and then they could observe and learn a thing or two so that they could find some flaws, and then they could climb more easily, climb higher, and obtain more fortuitous encounters, However, no one was a fool. There were too many people who had the same idea. They wouldn't do it unless it was absolutely necessary. 15 minutes, 2 hours, half a day. Finally, someone became impatient. It wasn't that they weren't patient enough, but if they waited, who knew how long they would have to wait? A day later, someone finally stood out. Since you don't want to go and are willing to wait, let me try first. A burly man with the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear shouted. He pushed the crowd aside and leaped into the air. In a trance, he could vaguely hear the roar of a tiger. A gust of black wind flashed past, and a fishy smell assaulted his face. There seemed to be a blinding white light, like the sword Qi, which made people feel uneasy. In a flash, he landed directly in front of the heavenly road and lifted his foot to step on it. Clouds follow dragons. Wind follows tigers. This burly man was a tiger spirit. Moreover, he was not an ordinary tiger, but a white tiger of the 4 symbols, 4 spirits. White Tiger was a natural swordsman. This person was the hidden expert of the White Tiger clan. Even if he couldn't compare to the Dragon clan's Dragon Mother and the others, he wasn't too far off. He was a powerhouse who had experienced the vicious beast calamity, the Great Dragon and Phoenix War, and fought against the Demon Sect and Buddhist Sect. There were 5 sacred beasts in the world: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and Kirin. Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, and Kirin represented the 3 ancient dragon and phoenix clans. They were the leaders of the scaled, flying, and walking beasts. White Tiger belonged to the walking beasts, while Black Tortoise belonged to the scaled beasts. Although they weren't as famous as the dragon and phoenix clans, and there wasn't even a trace of them when a shaman ruled the world, they were able to get rid of the shackles of the scaled beasts and the walking beasts. Their strength couldn't be underestimated. This was especially so for the White Tiger clan. The White Tiger was of the metal attribute and was born to kill. They were located in the west and had experienced the Qilin clan's attack, Rahu's suppression, and Zhuanti's purification. Now, any one of them had the strength of the late stage of Sage-to-Be. Those who knew the inside story all sighed with emotion. Although everyone sighed with emotion about the powerful foundation of the White Tiger clan, they only sighed for a while and then threw it to the back of their minds. After all, it wasn't the time to think about this. The most important thing now was to see the White Tiger clan's master exploring the way. They hoped that they could find some clues from his actions. Everyone stared at him. Although the burly man from the White Tiger clan was the first to run out, and he seemed to be rash and careless, for him to be able to cultivate to this realm and live well under the suppression of Qilin, Rahu, Zhuani, and the others, how could he be stupid? At this moment, his face was tense, and he looked extremely serious and vigilant. On the surface, he was unruly and careless, but inside, he was treading on thin ice. However, at the same time, he maintained his courage and determination. The white tiger was vigilant, but he didn't hesitate and stepped on the heaven road. Buzz. The white tiger didn't encounter any attack, but he felt the pressure on his body increase by 100 times, as if there was a mountain on his shoulder. More importantly, at this moment, what made the white tiger's heart tremble was that he couldn't use his magic power and spiritual treasure. The only way he could deal with it was actually the strength of his physical body. If it was an ordinary person or someone with a lower cultivation base, they would have a drastic change in expression upon encountering such a situation. Putting everything else aside, just the pressure of MT Tai alone was not easy to deal with. Even if one could withstand it, it would not be easy. However, the white tiger's heart only trembled and his expression didn't change. This meant that not only was his cultivation high, but even his temperament surpassed ordinary people. You remember what the Hongjun boy said earlier. To reach the top of the heaven road, one must have top-notch spirit, magic power, cultivation method, spiritual treasure, and so on. I think the first test is the primordial essence and physical body. The white tiger thought to himself. Although it was just a guess, the white tiger was very sure. The unknown was the scariest. After understanding what he had to face, the white tiger immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He calmed himself down a little, took a deep breath, and continued to move forward, putting both feet on the heaven road at the same time. In an instant, an even greater pressure came crashing down on him. However, this bit of pressure was nothing more than a gentle breeze to the white tiger. The reason why it was so easy was because it was just the beginning and was just an appetizer. More importantly, it was because of the white tiger's physical body. In the desolation, ever since the Purple Cloud Palace started teaching, the Qi cultivation path became popular. Hongjun was also known as the Daozu. However, this Daozu was more about the Qi cultivation path. As for the body tempering path, just from listening to the Wu people, one could tell a thing or two. Nowadays, although the Qi cultivation path was popular in the desolation, except for the Wu people who insisted on the body tempering path, it didn't mean that everyone didn't know the benefits of the body tempering path. Therefore, the demon race had the heavenly demon real body. The mystic sects had the 9 transformations technique. The Buddhist sects had the 8-9 arcane technique. The heavenly demon lineage had the freeform incarnation. The Blood Sea had the Blood Sea immortal body, and so on. As a most ancient and powerful race, how could the white tiger race not have the body tempering technique? More importantly, as one of the sacred beasts, the white tiger's powerful physical body was their innate magical power, just like the divine power of ordinary people. Chapter 1185. Training Qi was about techniques and enlightenment. Training the physique, on the other hand, was more about talent. For ordinary people, not to mention that their achievements in body tempering were limited, they would need to spend a lot more time, experience, and resources to reach the same realm as those with extraordinary talent. In fact, if they didn't have any fortuitous encounters and resources, they might even end up cultivating themselves to death. Fortuitous encounters were easy to explain, but resources were similar to how the poor studied while the rich practiced martial arts. The white tiger was born in the White Tiger clan. The clan had the peerless body-refining cultivation method, the Great Gung metal sore body, and they were born of the white tiger bloodline. It was precisely because of this that even if they did not specialize in body-refining cultivation methods, the strength of their physical bodies would still improve along with their cultivation. They were not inferior to ordinary people who specialized in body-refining cultivation methods, let alone the fact that White Tiger had specialized in training the physique and was no weaker than Qi. Therefore, this little bit of pressure at the beginning was not enough to make White Tiger waver. Therefore, without any hesitation, the White Tiger continued to stride forward and climbed up the mountain with a majestic gait. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Though the pressure was increasing, White Tiger was able to handle it without any hesitation. His speed didn't even change. At this point, the spectators didn't notice any problems and continued to observe. On the ninth step, White Tiger had just stepped in when he felt a pressure that doubled. Caught off guard, his body couldn't help but pause. Luckily, this pressure was within his tolerance range. His breathing merely changed for a moment before he adjusted and continued to move forward. At the same time, White Tiger realized something. 9 is the extreme of numbers. There are 9 levels on the path to heaven. Every 9 steps means a change. It seems like every time a 9 appears, the pressure increases. With this in mind, before the next 9 appeared, the White Tiger intentionally sensed it. Sure enough, when it took the 19th step from the 18th to the 18th, the crushing force doubled once again. If the pressure of each of the 9 steps was 1 level higher than the pressure of the previous step, then the pressure of the 10th step was double that of the 9th step. So on and so forth. Gradually, the 9th step, the 18th step, the 27th step, the White Tiger went higher and higher, but his speed became slower and slower. Especially after the 36th step, the White Tiger had no choice but to mobilize the power of his physical body. Fortunately, he had cultivated the body refinement technique. Otherwise, the 45th step would have been his limit. Even with the replenishment of the body tempering power, it was still very difficult for the White Tiger to move. Sweat poured down from its forehead like rain, and its muscles, bones, and internal organs were trembling nonstop. The reason why Hongjun had set up the Heavenly Road was so that they could select the people who would fight against the poison god Marquis and the others. This matter was related to his chance to break through to the immortal realm. Hongjun couldn't afford to be careless. That was the reason why he offered such a high price tag. He wanted to attract more people and experts to come out and cast a wide net. Sure enough, the movement of the wind and clouds gave him a huge surprise. The opportunity had been given, but the people who chose it naturally had to strive for perfection. Therefore, the pressure here was not small. Even compared to when Fong Qingshan ascended to the top of Mount Buzhou, it was probably not much different. Allow me. Me too. Even though the White Tiger had only walked a few dozen steps, each step felt like it was so close yet so far. Therefore, it had climbed a long distance and was about halfway to the first step. Seeing that the White Tiger wasn't in any danger, the others couldn't hold back anymore. At once, more than 10 people leaped out and landed on the path of heaven. The path of heaven was extremely wide. Even if there were 100 people, 1,000 people, or even 10,000 people walking side by side, it wouldn't feel crowded. After all, the first step alone could fit 1,000 people. Therefore, it was very easy for dozens of people to step on it. These people were either unaffiliated or came from the weaker races of the Desolation Alliance. None of them were considered strong. The strongest ones were merely those who broke through to the demigod realm by luck. The difference between these people and the White Tiger was far too huge. Whether it was their physical cultivation level, physique strength, background, or knowledge. The moment their bodies entered the Heavenly Road, an invisible force came pressing down on them. In an instant, it was as if they had been immobilized. At the same time, all of their eyes widened like bronze bells, and the bones in their bodies made cracking sounds. They couldn't handle it. In that 1/1,000,000th of a second, those who stopped moving after the first step were pushed backward by an invisible force. They landed outside the path of heaven with blood dripping from the corner of their mouths. Luckily, their injuries weren't serious, and they didn't hurt their foundations. Those who were slightly stronger could walk 1 or 2 more steps. The best one managed to walk 10 steps. He was the one who broke through to the demigod realm by luck. Unfortunately, on the 10th step, the sudden increase in pressure instantly caused him to bounce out. Failure. All of them failed. Despite this, it didn't stop everyone from chasing after their fortunes. Of course, the most important thing was that everyone understood that the path of heaven was a fortune and a fortune without any danger. Even if they failed, they would at most suffer some minor injuries and wouldn't hurt their foundations. Injuries, as long as they weren't near death and didn't damage their foundations, were acceptable. Where else could they find such a good fortune? How could they miss out on such a fortune? Without the threat of death, everyone had nothing to worry about, and they were full of motivation. However, the true powerhouses, elites, and geniuses didn't make a move and continued to observe. After all, the path of heaven had 9 levels, and White Tiger hadn't even made it past the first level. Even if they didn't make a move, someone else would. From a group of people after White Tiger, everyone understood a principle. Although the Heaven's Path was a great opportunity, it would be difficult to obtain it except for those at the pinnacle of Quasi-Sage, Paragon, and Quasi-Sage. Even late Quasi-Sage experts would find it hard to obtain it. If that was the case, everyone's eyes were no longer on the path of primordial fortune. Instead, they would do their best to climb the few levels of the path of heaven and fight for some fortunes to improve their cultivation. Therefore, just as the second group left, another few hundred people rushed in. Just like the first group, this group was also a mix of good and bad. The weaker ones weren't even Grand Luo, while the stronger ones were demigod saints. However, the outcome was the same. Some took 1 step, some took a dozen steps, but the most did not even manage to take 18 steps before they were all shot out and landed outside the path of heaven. Some of them had their blood and chi shaken, while others had blood dripping from the corner of their mouths. Failure. All of them failed again. The fourth group, the fifth group, the sixth group, batch after batch, and by the 10th group, they still failed. All of them failed. Nobody could complete the first stage. The best result was 30 steps, and that was it. Moreover, 30 steps was still a long way from the first stage, which was also the first fortune. White Tiger had already taken 72 steps, but was he still some distance away from the first stage and the first fortune? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.